but I know I love you. What happened to Aaron Neville, man? Where did he go? Bring back Aaron Neville. I don't know much, but I know I love you. He was great, man. Good morning. That may be all there is to know. Finally caught one of these live again. It would be weird seeing you become something similar to the nostalgic critic. Funny thing how things work out. Huh? So another catch up on Ukraine today. Well, if that's what you guys want to talk about, I didn't really come here with an idea to like sit on my soapbox about anything. So if you guys got questions about that, I guess I'll talk about it. I, like everybody else, will be burned out by this in a week. And all the like high emotions and stuff, like all those people will calm down. See, the problem is that social media creates an area where people can take things way too far, freak out, and then like just like 2 days later, they're just like, oh well. But you know, I at least admit it. I'll be burnt on it soon, and so will everybody else. It's hard to stop thinking about the Ukraine. Not for me. They're giving out free weapons on the front lines. Grab your free rifle today in Ukraine. I love it when people celebrate stuff like that. I saw a Vosh clip last night of him talking about like the straight from the State Department to the hands of every man, woman, and child. Anybody who wants to take a shot, you know. And he's got this like gleam in his eyes, like, oh, isn't it great? Russian troops aren't even going to be able to get out of their APCs. They're going to have to piss in cans in their APCs because there's going to be people every window taking a shot at them. Dude, if he was there, he'd literally have a pants load of shit. He'd be easy for the Russians to shoot because they would smell the pants load of shit.
Sorry, I had to do the coffee again. I forgot to put the grounds in. Like, why is this so clear? Oh.
Dude, I've been there. I've put my phone in the fridge. I put milk in a cabinet. I've definitely brewed coffee without putting the grounds in before, where you just basically like use the world's most inefficient water heater to get some hot water. I've let's see. Oh yeah. When you wake up, you get like 5 or 6 of those. You know what I mean? 5 or 6, like, what the fuck am I doing? I've reused coffee grounds all the time on accident. I've done that before too.
Yeah, that's what I did. I'm like, I don't want no fucking day old coffee ground coffee.
No, that's the worst, man. That is the worst. Anybody play that Horizon Zero Dawn game? 99% sure I own that game, and I've never played it. I think I got it on a PS4 way back in the day on a whim. And I don't think I ever booted it. Maybe I should check that game out. I know they've just recently like released like a ultimate edition of it or whatever.
I keep forgetting to boot up that Final Fantasy too.
Oh yeah. Got Final Fantasy X for the Switch. Horizon Forbidden West is the new one, and Zero Dawn is the old one. Oh, I didn't even know that there was a new one. I just remember that like I saw on Steam like a month ago or something that they were re-releasing Horizon Zero Dawn, like the anniversary edition or whatever. So that's what I thought you were talking. I didn't even know there was like a sequel. It just goes to show you like how easy it is for me to like fall behind on games and shit. It's too much to follow anymore. Like, you want to know who I think are some of the like most hardworking like review commentators and content creators? It's video game guys, dude. Because I mean, there's a lot of stuff about that job that really makes it unappealing. Like being a video game reviewer or a commentator. Because like if there's a game that everybody is rabid for and you boot it up and you play it and you don't like it, you've got two choices. You can either just make no money that month as everybody else that's doing your job plays Elden Ring or whatever the game that came out this month is that you don't like, or you can sit there day after day playing a game you don't like for people. That just seems...
A hot take on the game only goes so far.
Yeah,
I get a little attention for having a hot take, but
yeah, you might get a little pop for being like Elden Ring sucks or whatever, but then everybody's going to be like, you'll get one good view and then everybody's going to be out watching other people playing Elden Ring, doing all the Elden Ring content and shit. So it's just very much like, it would be like a movie commentator kind of has to do the same thing, I guess, but to a much lesser extent.
They're only so long.
Right. Like the worst thing that can happen to you is that you spend, what, 2.5, 3 hours with a really long movie that you didn't like. And then you write a review about it and then you're done. You know, you're not coming back tomorrow to watch the movie some more, you know. I can't stand the hype behind Elden Ring. Dude, I'm with you, and maybe it's because I haven't played all the way through a lot of the Souls games, but people are all talking about how like, oh, Elden Ring is so different. Elden Ring is such a different type of Souls game. Oh my god, it's like an evolution of the Souls games and stuff. And like every clip that I've seen of it, it looks like Dark Souls, but you have a horse now. You can get on a horse. It's like the enemies look the same. The lore has that same like, this isn't meant to be gotten into kind of quality. Where instead of getting any kind of like unfolding backstory, like you really have to dig in a Souls game to even understand what's going on. Like you'll walk up to an NPC, and in other games they might give you a little background or give you a little nugget of the story, but in like a Souls game they'll be like, the shrines must be mended, traveler. The bells must be rung. You know, and you're just like, oh my god, why is everybody on Quaaludes in Dark Souls? And I watched, I don't know, like maybe 15 minutes of gameplay. I guess it came out yesterday or the day before. Watched like 15 minutes of somebody playing it, and I was just like, how is this not just Dark Souls with a horse? Like, looks the same. It's got the same dingy kind of like... It looks like that some horrible tragedy happened in the world of Dark Souls that like leached. Like, you know, when you're using slider bars to adjust the colors of a picture, and you've got that grayscale bar, it's like they took the tricolor bar and moved it down to about -50, and the grayscale bar up to like +50. It just looks like they've got all this like big expansive stuff in all Dark Souls games, honestly, but it all looks like it's being filmed with a camera that's just dirty. Somebody just like dug out of an old mine or something. It just, I don't know, man. The game is just kind of like dingy and slow and yawn-inducing to me. Like, lore-wise, I just want to skip all the fucking stupid-ass lore, because, I don't know, it just doesn't even really feel fleshed out at all.
It's like, I think that's a really good test of a game. It's like, do you skip past all of the dialogue, or do you actually, like, try to listen and read the first time?
It depends on what the game's about, I guess. Like, for like an MMO game where the game is not really about the story, it's about just getting your character to max level so you can play with other people, then, you know, I kind of expect to skip my way through the story. But if it's a big cinematic game, like, even if you don't skip the story in Dark Souls, I guarantee you, like, probably 90% of the people who have beaten Dark Souls couldn't explain what went on in it to you. They couldn't explain what was going on in the world of it. And maybe some people like that, you know, lore that's got a bunch of holes in it so that you have to fill it all in and you don't quite know what's going on. But for me, like, in a game like that, that's about, like, going from location to location, lore is the glue that binds all that together. And if it's not there, then I just feel no impetus to go anywhere or do anything. Filling holes in the lore is fun when you're not playing the game. Yeah, I imagine. If you're really into the game, it might be fun to, like, speculate about. But for a dude that it just never clicked with me. And for the longest time, I thought it was that genre of game that's called Souls-like that I didn't like. And I tried other Souls-likes, and all I can come down to is, like, a combination of the Souls-like controls scheme and the presentation of it that I don't like. Because I've played other more colorful, better fleshed out lore Souls-like games that I really fucking enjoyed. There's a Star Wars one. Star Wars not Last Jedi, that's the fucking stupid movie. Anyway, there was like a Fallen Order, that's what it's called, Fallen Order. And that's a Souls-like where you get to play a Jedi, which is really cool. Sekiro, I actually enjoyed the time I spent with that, even though I didn't beat that game. I thought that game was, I don't know, cool. Made by the same company, too. And then there's a game called The Surge. Actually, The Surge 2 is the one that I played, which is more like a futuristic one. Oh, thank you, baby girl. Watch that door. I was watching for...
Cricket is comfy on the bed right now.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
He's not going anywhere for a while. I'm trying to find a place where this won't tip over on you.
It'll be fine. I'll bring it right here in the middle. There we go. I've never gotten to play Bloodborne, but it looks a whole lot like Elder Scrolls in terms of, like, the color palette and stuff, so I probably wouldn't like it much. Or not Elder Scrolls, Dark Souls. Sorry, still waking up. Let me sip this coffee. Bloodborne is Dark Souls without blocking. Yeah, I don't like the combat in Dark Souls, and I don't like the presentation of it. So no blocking doesn't matter to me. Soul Reaver, yeah, Soul Reaver is actually kind of like a Souls-like game. In fact, I gotta imagine that Dark Souls was at least a little bit inspired by Soul Reaver, and Soul Reaver itself was a spin-off of the Legacy of Kain series, which is a really neat vampire setting. Great lore. So, yeah. Soul Reaver was super duper dope. Yeah.
I know that Jedi Fallen Order is probably your favorite Souls-like recently.
Yeah, that's definitely the one that I've played the most, like, of, and I got all the way through that one. That one and The Surge 2 have been the ones that really, like, I was like, okay, cool. Dark Souls was inspired by Kingsfield. Well, yeah, I know that. I know that Dark Souls is a FromSoft game and came out of the Kingsfield thing, but I gotta imagine that like its presentation, like it has inspirations outside of what it's a spiritual successor of. And I really do feel like the way that the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver had like this Metroidvania style thing, which I'll be honest with you, like so does Dark Souls. Dark Souls is like a 3D Metroidvania where you've got this big map with different areas and secret areas, and different keys are needed to open different areas that lead to other areas. Like that's all. Code Vein is a cool anime Souls game with post-apocalyptic vampires. You lost me with the anime. Like if you just told me it was a Souls game, I might have checked it out, and then when I saw it was anime, I wouldn't have played it. So you saved me some money, or some time. I just don't think I could play a game like that with an anime aesthetic. I don't like how like cheaply and shittily most anime is translated into English. I really feel like so much is lost in translation with anime, and it makes it seem like almost all anime seem like goofy in a way that maybe it wasn't even intended to be.
Like Japanese is a much more angry language too.
That's true. It's very staccato. You know, very like short syllables and very rapid speaking. You know. And I can imagine that it's pretty hard to like, because it's like when you speak, there's all kinds of like intent that you have consciously, and then there's all kinds of things that you really have no control over, like your culture, how you were raised, your accent, and you know, all of those things. And those things are very interesting to watch in film, and I feel like so much is lost in anime. I feel like that's why a lot of people like me aren't huge fans of anime. I don't hate it. You know what I mean? Like I've seen anime that I actually think is pretty good, including some that are, you know, like way more traditional, I guess people would consider animes. But I just don't like most of it. I really can't. Yeah, Persona. I liked Persona 5. I was playing that, and then I got to a dungeon and I just got so frustrated because I died and I had to go back so far. I lost like, you remember, lost like 2 hours of progress in the dungeon, and I just never was able to like get over that hump. It was not even an early dungeon either. It was like the 4th or 5th dungeon in the game, so I was really steaming along in that game and enjoying it. And then that setback right there just felt so shitty. I'm so spoiled to games that don't lose progress. You know what I mean? Like the idea that I just did 2 hours of carefully exploring a dungeon and shit only to die, and now I've got to go back and redo every one of those fights, every one of those little secret areas, every one of those little... I just couldn't do it. I couldn't face the idea of doing it all again. Dude, 30 minutes, I probably would have been okay. Like, if it was only 30 minutes of time, I would have been like, fuck. Maybe sat it down for a while and then come back the next day and just did it. But it was literally, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I think it was about like 2 hours.
It was like 2 hours worth of lost progress. And that's not fun. You know what I mean? That's something about older games that I don't appreciate in retrospect, is that, you know, a lot of games were like that, where you would just lose. And Dark Souls is very much about exploiting that mechanic of losing progress. Like that's why a lot of people think that Dark Souls is hard. I think Dark Souls is a hard game for anybody to kind of like pick up, but I don't think it's the hardest. I don't think it's anywhere near as hard as people make it out to be. What makes Dark Souls hard is that it constantly winds you back. Constantly. If you die and you can't get back to where you died, everything that you killed from the point where you started playing to the part where you died, everything that you did, erased, gone. Right. You can try and get your progress back, but in order to get your progress back, you have to re-progress to where you died. You don't just get to, like, when you die in Dark Souls, all the enemies come back and your little soul pile stays right where you died. So you have to do everything that you did to get there, to get the currency that you earned. And if you can do it, great. But if you die somewhere on the way there, you don't quite get there, you're fucked. And then you're out not just the time it took you to get there in the first place, the time it took you to try and get back. Maybe you got 2/3 of the way back. And now you've got to go all the way back to the Firelink Shrine and do it again. You know what I mean? And to me, like, I can only take so much of that shit.
Yeah, with other games, it's like you only have yourself to blame if it's been 2 hours and you died.
I mean, honestly, in Souls, you only have yourself to blame too. I will say this about Dark Souls: when you die in it, it's hard, but it's very fair. You fucked up. You didn't block. You didn't dodge. You took something for granted. You stepped on a trap. You took an enemy. You know, you were too bored, and so you just wanted to button mash an enemy, and a little weak enemy killed you. It really is your fault when you die, and I'm fine with that. That's true of pretty much any good video game. But it's just like, man, that's what the whole game is about. Losing progress over and over again until finally you make progress. And then starting that loop over. Okay, I got to the new area. Whew. That feels great. Now let's lose progress for another 8 hours till I get to the new area. Well, yeah, I get it, but yeah, that's that very thing that I don't like very much about Souls-like games is what draws some people to them. They like that challenge of, like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it this time. Oh no, man, I messed up again. I'm gonna do it this time. And then that ultimate kind of, I did it. That feedback loop is good for some people, and for people like, I think for me, one of the reasons why I think I probably would have been into Souls-like games a lot more when I was like a teenager, if they had existed when I was a teenager. There was really nothing like Dark Souls when I was a teenager. Soul Reaver, I think I would have liked that game. I would have liked the game a lot more if I had played it when I was younger. But now I look at video games as like a time thing. So, you know, if I play 3 hours of a video game, that's cool. But I want to be able to show something for my 3 hours. I want to see some kind of progression through a story or some kind of strengthening of my character. And it is very possible to play 3, 4, 5 hours of Dark Souls and be right where you started when you know what I mean? Like, it's real easy. And, you know, a lot of people would say, you know, if you suck at the game, I kind of don't think that's true. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are pretty mediocre at Dark Souls, end up beating it. It's more about persistence, you know? Games you play nowadays, we should hop on an MMO and get a DFF guild going or something. Yeah, no, dude. I learned my lesson with that type of shit, man. Doing like fan video game stuff is just, it's typically bad. It typically doesn't work out, you know what I mean? Unless you're taking it really super unseriously. Remember, I used to have fun way back before DP. On this channel, I would play Eve, which is an MMO space game kind of thing, and I had a little a guild in Eve. But yeah, I don't know. I checked out Lost Ark recently, but I got to the end game of it and saw like what that is, and I was like, nope. It's just literally just a loop of doing the same shit every day. The end game has no like variety in it. It has no like, they've tried to make it look like variety, but it really isn't. You do these daily quests every day. You visit these islands every day. You do these repeating, mini dungeons every day, and then you're done. Then you can't do anymore. Then you can't gain anymore on that character. So you get on another character and you do it all with them, or at least the things that aren't account wide, because some of the things you can't even do with another character. And it's just like, man, and you just do that every day, every day. And once again, I really think that type of game is that same thing I'm bitching about is probably something that a lot of people like. Like, a lot of people probably like that predictable repetitiveness of playing an MMO where you come on, you do your dailies, you get a little micro advancement maybe somewhere, and then you come back, and it's really not about what you get in a day, it's about what you get in a month or a year. Yeah, I played Planet Side 2 for quite a bit when it first came out in CR. Before you ask. And yeah, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought it was a novel concept. I think that the game had quite a few problems. Vanu, oh god. Sexy alien people. Sexy, weird alien sniper people. Fun story, my dad's woman had a guy apply for a work position as a superintendent. His work experience was, I quote, "I've killed Deathwing 25 man with my guild, so I'm good at managing people." I gotta be real with you, dude. It may seem funny, but if he guild led a 25 man raid, he's not lying.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it doesn't seem like it directly applies to somebody that doesn't understand what a WoW raid is, but having like at least been to a shoddily put together one, I can understand how much organizational skill and snap decision making and the ability to communicate, all three of those things, if you can't do those things, you can't lead a raid on Deathwing. He should have rephrased it. He should have said, I'm a hobbyist who spends time leading my hobby group, and I have for many, many years. This requires attention to detail and working with different personalities and decision making to make sure that our hobby stays fun for everybody. If he would have said that, that probably would have read a little better. But
I don't know. I think the other one's more impressive.
I killed Deathwing 25 man. Yeah, I mean, if you know what that is or can conceptualize what that is, but if you're like a boomer sitting there reading it, you're gonna be like, what? And see where you're coming from, but at the same time, an MMO raid, especially one in WoW, is something most decent players educate themselves about on their own. Yeah. No, I understand that, but like you cannot deny that having a raid leader that keeps things moving, make sure that people clear comms when they need to, make sure that people are staying, like, clearing the trash fast enough, not getting bored, not getting sidetracked. Making sure that he reminds people of mechanics, because people can shut their brains off when you've done mechanics over and over again. You do a quick, like, everybody remember the whelps, or everybody remember the fucking AoE that happens in phase 2 or something, and be ready for it. And mages, last time, we lost a lot of you. Make sure you stay out of the, that type of stuff, dude. I'm telling you. And in addition to that, keeping a guild together, because it's not just killing Deathwing that's impressive. It's the fact that in order to kill Deathwing, you have to keep that dedicated group of at least 25 people, probably more like 50 people, because some people rotate in and out because people can't play 24/7. You got to keep that group of 50 people from tearing. I mean, look at Twitter. Dude, you can't post like, "Man, it's sunny out here," without getting like, "Fuck you, idiot." You know what I mean? Like, you've got to keep 50 totally unique personalities all working towards a common goal. That's impressive, man.
And just the confidence in listing that on your resume too, I think says a lot.
See, yeah, like if I got a resume where it said that, even the dude lucked out because I played WoW for a long time. But yeah, dude, you know, unless the dude's resume was a total failure outside of that, I'd probably give him a chance because I know what that entails. You know, I know it entails a little bit of like gumption and stick-to-itiveness.
And honestly, I think that hiring is like 75% fucking confidence when it comes to like interview hiring.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's stupid, but that's how it is. Like, if you're bad at interviewing, it doesn't matter how many qualifications you have.
True. Maybe he's just banking on getting interviewed by somebody like you. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe he's hoping. I mean, at a certain point, it's going to be hard for him not to be interviewed by somebody like me. Because, you know, the people that really spent a lot of their childhoods playing WoW, I wasn't one of them. I played WoW as like a college-aged guy. You know what I mean? As like a little pastime or whatever. They're, you know, kids that grew up playing it are going to be hiring people soon.
Yeah, they're like in their 50s and shit.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know about their 50s, but
well, if you're in your 40s and
well, WoW came out in 2004, I want to think. And I played it for, I mean, not like some people play it every day, all day. But I played it on and off for probably 10 years. Probably through like 2014, I think was the last time I logged into my WoW account. I may be wrong about that. But, you know, I came back, left for extended period of time, come back and check out the new content, get re-sucked into it, and then realize, like, what the fuck am I doing? WoW was really good about that. This Lost Ark game wasn't good about breadcrumbing me. You know what I mean? WoW made it way harder to level. And I know, like, I was excited to play this Lost Ark game because it had like this truncated leveling so you could really get to the end game stuff. But I found that killed it for me because I just skipped myself through the leveling system as fast as I could, skipped every story, and I got to the end game, and it was just like boring and depressing. But WoW, dude, I don't think I ever maxed a character in WoW. WoW kept me sucked in with that constant sense of like, you sit down, you play 2 hours, you got a new piece of gear. The next time you log in, your character looks a little different on the login screen. You can see those purple gloves that your mage got in that last play session, or, you know, that new hat that you've been trying to fucking get. And it was just so good at that. It was so good at like getting you to feel invested in the development of your character while simultaneously like enticing you to start another one. Oh yeah, I'm not saying leveling is hard. I'm just saying it takes a long time, especially back in Classic. Like I know that and especially since I stopped playing in 2014 or so, they've really truncated the leveling process and shit. But back in like WoW Classic, release WoW, it was, dude, it took a fuck ton of time to get to the max level, which at that time, I believe at release, it was 50 was max. And then it went to 55 with like an expansion. And then I think Classic ended at 60. And then once you went to 60, then they came out with the first real big expansion. And I can't remember the name. It was like the Blood Elf expansion. Dude, he gotta go, dude. You gotta go, bro. No barking. Quiet. Ugh. Oh, yeah, Burning Crusade. Yeah. Anyway. So, I really, you know, I give props to that game. A lot of people make fun of it, but I love a game that lets you play it different ways, because you can be a totally like casual dude and have a lot of fun playing WoW. A dude that doesn't have time to have a guild, doesn't want to play with other people even. You can solo a lot of fun stuff in World of Warcraft. And it was always fun to play alone. But if you're really ambitious, you want to get the coolest loot, you got to work at it. You got to join a guild that's serious about doing it. You got to show up on, you know, and there's got to be somebody at the head of all of that can lead people, that doesn't, because, you know, like guilds are, if you've never been in one, and I've never really been in a super hardcore raiding guild, but I've been in a couple of guilds in different games that were fucking serious. Like these people were like not joking around. If you fucked up or didn't do something right, man, you were on the chopping block. The harshest guild well, I guess it was a corporation because it was in Eve. I was in a guild that was part of Goon Swarm. I was actually in a guild called Dreadit. It was the Reddit Goon Swarm sub guild or whatever the fuck. And they were laid back when there wasn't something to be done. But dude, I got in trouble almost immediately because I was out, making money for my character. And then they were like, "Why the fuck are you here? What are you doing in a pirate belt?" I just get like a message from some guild guy. "What are you doing like in an asteroid belt fighting pirates? Didn't you hear the guild? Or haven't you looked at the guild channel or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh no, dude, sorry, I just logged in." And I looked and it was like, "All hands on deck. All materiel that you can move needs to go to SJ7- immediately. This is a 100% compliant." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, bro. Oh shit, man, I slept through the alarm." You know what I mean? Whoops, sorry. Man, I was a fish out of water in that guild, bro. My stoner ass was just not built to be in Dreadit, bro.
They're on a timetable on Reddit, man.
Yeah. Dude, the worst thing that ever happened to me, and I think people will be able to understand it if I explain it in generalities. So, Eve is huge. It's like a scale replica of a piece of the galaxy. So it's got like a huge, huge playable game area. And so getting from one area to another, especially like across the map or whatever, it takes a long time if you're just going, because you got to jump from one system to the next, and you got to get to the next Stargate and jump to the next system.
You can get lost in the Stargate.
You can. If you can take a wrong turn, you take the wrong gate, and now all of a sudden we're like, "Where's my fucking guild?" And I'm like, "Oh shit!" And when you're out in 0-0, which is like the end game deep space where systems don't even have names, they're all numbers. It's like S-7812. It's like it's real easy to get sidetracked. Anyway, so one of the ways that big guilds get around this is that they have these huge in-game ships that only guilds can build because it takes months and months of multiple players working together and all contributing, and one character has to have tons and tons of time to even fly the ship, called Titans. They're huge, they're giant, they're as big as like a space station in the game, but there's a person flying it. One of the things those Titans can do is create this thing called a Titan bridge, which allows for you to get around I gotta go through this gate, I gotta go through this gate. So in a nutshell, a Titan bridge requires 2 players, basically. One player, and usually it's one player playing 2 accounts. One has to go to the place where it wants the Titan to jump to, or allow people to jump to. So there has to be somebody has to make the journey. So you send one scout out, and this scout lights a sino. That's what it's called. It starts a sinosaural field in that area that signals back to the Titan, even if it's all the way across the galaxy. Well, it's not all the way across the galaxy. There's only a certain amount of distance you can do, but it's way far away. And then the Titan can open up a jump bridge, and everybody that's in, and it can be hundreds of players, goes through, and they're instantly teleported from here to here. So like I said, because it can't be the whole galaxy at once, you sometimes do like 2 or 3 Titan jumps. So you would jump like 20,000 light years, and then another 100,000 light years, and then you find everybody always finally. So dude, I'd never done it before, and it was so cool. I was like so in awe. I'd never even seen a Titan, and so all of a sudden I'm there with the coolest, biggest ship in the game, and I'm like, "Oh fuck, dude, I'm in this. I'm about to be a warrior, bro. I'm gonna die in glory for my guild and all this." I'm all jazzed up about it. So I take the first Titan jump, and it jumps us to this system out in the middle of nowhere. It's just this deep darkness, and I'm like, "Whoa!" And I look on the map, and look how far we went. I'm just like a noob. I'm just having fun playing the game. experiencing something I'd never experienced. But everybody else was just like, they knew exactly what to do. So when you jump in with a Titan, you're scattered and you've got to go back to the Titan. Well, I didn't in fast enough. You know what I mean? I was too busy like, whoa, looking at my map. How far did we go? And the fucking Titan and everybody left me.
Oh.
And I'm talking about left me. Ass out in the middle of enemy territory alone with nobody with me. And no way to get out other than just to fly one jump home back to the system I started in. And I guess the most tragic part is that I actually almost made it. Like, I had a bunch of my expensive ship. I was like, fuck, at least I didn't lose my ship. You know, I got back to like my home system. But what I didn't realize is that when these war operations are going on, oftentimes the enemy, in addition to fighting you on the big war field, will send small units into your territory to get stragglers like me coming back to try and resupply. And I was like 2 jumps. I'll never forget the name of the system either. It was EWOK-J. Ewok J. You can look it up in Eve. That's the fucking system I got nuked in. And it was 2 jumps from home. Like 120 jumps. 2 jumps home. Guys killed me. I was like, oh.
Yeah, dude, I remember that one time you got lost and you had to like look up the whole like fucking like map quest version of Eve.
Oh yeah, dude. You can get, especially now, because now they got wormholes which close. They do basically the same thing. They send you in a wormhole space, and then you go out another wormhole, and you could be across the galaxy. But when you come through a wormhole, it might close behind you randomly, and then it's like, well, okay, so now I can't go back the way I came back through the chain to get back home. So,
to like look up like all the jumps you had to do and shit.
Yeah, I got asked out. I had a wormhole collapse right when I came through it. And I was just fucking so far from home or anything that I could even set up a new home in that I had to just do like 180 really sad, scary jumps. You know. But I like those kind of emergent things in games. Even though that day in Eve was a big fuck up for me. I didn't get to see the big war. I didn't get to participate in the big battle at all. I got lost on the way there. That emergent gameplay experience was one of the most memorable things that's ever happened to me in a game. To the point where I still remember EW0K-J. It wasn't OK. It's EW0K-J. Ewok J, dude. The fateful system. So that kind of gameplay experience is only really created in very few multiplayer games that I've ever played. And nowadays, you just really can't even find it. Games are actually designed against that. Because there are people, unlike me, that might get frustrated with that gameplay experience. For me, that was like super cool and memorable at the end of the day. But for somebody that was really into the game, that might have just been deflating and defeating, you know what I mean? Ewok J would be a good alt for you. Yeah, you could do it, dude.
Or a strain, dude.
Yeah. I could try. Maybe I can boot up Eve and try and get back to Ewok J. I know it's like I'd probably get blown up on the way there because I'm not in that guild anymore. So I'm not, and I'm sure that that corporation doesn't even hold that part of space anymore. So I can't even use my like old affiliation with them. So I'd have to get sneaky. Luckily, my character is completely, like, almost uniformly built around flying fast and cloaking and sneaky. Because that's what I wanted to do in Eve. I wanted to be that scout guy that lights a cyno. So in Eve, there's a central area of space that's not owned by any guild. it's like NPC empires own it, and that's where you start the game, and that's where you can. And a lot of people don't like spend the whole game in there. You can play PVE in that central part of space, and then if you go to that, there's another ring that's called low sec, where it's like there's some presence, like the cops from those empires are still around, but they don't respond as quickly, and you can be blown up by other people. And then there's the way outer ring of the galaxy, which is called nullsec or 00 space, 00 security level space, which is like pirates, player corporations that seize whole swaths of space and control who gets to come in and out of it, who gets to, and go to war with each other over territory. And there's nothing that any kind of game system does to impede them. They're only impeded by each other and that type of thing. So very neat, very distinct, like 3 very distinct ways to play that game. It's like you can play the game on I can't really be killed mode. You can play the game on, wow, I'm risking a little bit, but I can get away with it mode. And then you can play the game on like ultimate apocalypse war mode,
I mean, can you break the rules in like the high security central ring and just get killed by cops?
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, they do these things called suicide bubbles, where they will, like when you attack somebody at Eve, it's not like you're instantly killed. The cops have to respond. Mm-hmm. And so they'll build these ships that they can make for relatively cheap that have a lot of hit points and armor. And they will attack player ships who think that they are safe, just cruising through high sec space. And yeah, they get blown up in the process, but so does the other player. And then they've got somebody that's unaffiliated, like it could participate in the crime, that comes and steals that guy's loot and then takes all the loot off of the other guy so they can reuse it. So it's pretty awesome. Like, you're never really safe in Eve,
Yeah.
The bag man, yeah, he grabs the bag after the dirty deed has gone down, and he gets away with it. I mean, the cops are too busy dealing with that to deal with him looting in the shit and getting out of the system. So,
and those are player characters, right? That would be cops. No,
they're NPC cops.
Okay.
They're just scripted to not be
instant,
right? They patrol around certain areas, and if you commit a crime where they're not super close, they got to get there first. And like I said, every Eve system is basically a scale model. You can enter warp, but it takes a long time to get from one area to another another, even within a little system. So. But yeah, no, it's an interesting game. It's a really interesting gameplay system. Scamming is not only allowed, but almost implicitly encouraged by the game system. It has this contract system that seems designed to catch people that don't read contracts. Like, it's so cool. In the game, if you want some shit moved, like say you live in this space station, you got a ton of crap in it, and you don't have the skill to fly a big hauler, and you want all that stuff moved, you have to contact a player character who does it for a living. Basically, they do fly a hauler, so you open up a contract with them, and dude, there are ways that you can fill out the contract on both ends of that to just either get your crap moved for free or have your crap stolen completely and utterly if you don't read your contract.
Yeah, and that game seems to incentivize people having multiple accounts too.
Yeah, more so than other games too, because it's once again implicitly kind of like allowed by the game system. It's something that they tell you should do. Like, hey, you can open 2 because Eve is an old game. It still looks great, but it's old. So you can
but
run.
It's not like email or password for every single one and shit. Yeah.
It is actually, but they make it very easy to run multiple instances of the game client. so that you can fly a whole wing of dudes together, basically. It's hard to do, obviously, in complex things, but if you've got like a miner, like that's how I play it. I've got a miner, and then I use my cloaky guy who also has hauling skills as my hauler. I park him in the belt somewhere. I mine. I dump all the mining stuff and have my hauler guy come in and pick it up. And then when he's full, he goes back and dumps it and comes back and continues. And it just, it just speeds up my mining process. Because usually when my hold got full, which is really quick in a, bigger mining vessel with mining lasers and everything, you'd have to fly your mining barge all the way back to the station, dump your ore, fly it all the way back to the belt. This way you can just never stop mining. You just eat the whole asteroid belt. And that's so, oh man, it's making me want to play it.
Yeah. Or you could just go on a wormhole adventure again.
Well, that's the great thing about the game is that I have a character that, because I've been playing since, I think I started in 2005. My main character is like 2005, 2006. I've had a character that's been alive so long, has so many skills, I can do a bunch of different shit. Like I can haul things. Like I'm well on my way to being able to drive the biggest hauler in the game. In fact, I think really if I were to log in, the only thing holding me back would be money at this point. Like I'd have to get the money together to buy the ship. But at that point, I could be one of those dudes that move stuff around space. And I actually like space trucking in the game. I'm also got the alt that I have has a lot of skill points on him as a miner, and that's a really profitable thing to have, a hauler and a miner. You've got the guy that can extract the ore super fast because I'm flying an in-game mining barge with lasers on it, and then I've got the guy that can take all that raw ore, compress it into the hold, and go sell it wherever it's most expensive.
Have you tried the contract thing before?
Yes, you have to. I mean, it's like almost impossible to play the game unless you really just want to stay static in one system without contracting. It's not hard. It's just you can slip up if you get lazy and you're just like, oh, accept contract.
Well, I'm saying like since you are a hauler now, you could do some like shady contracts with people.
See, that's the thing though, is like if you're a hauler, people operate in EVE on their reputation.
Yeah.
So if I might be able to get away with it once or twice, and then my name is going to be mud. You know what I mean? Because other haulers don't like people like me. So once it gets around to people that actually do hauling, I'm blackballed, dude. They're not going to let me do any fucking contracting. They're going to tell everybody who I am, and that's that, So it's kind of like you got to pick your poison. It would have to be like I'd have to do it for a while, build up a reputation as a fucking great, fast, reliable, honest hauler, and then have somebody that, because I'm so trustworthy, gives me a load of shit that's worth like in real life like I'm like $100,000 or something. Like fly my whole blueprint collection from here to here, and then steal it. But that would take like probably months and months and years, But it would be the payoff is commensurate with, because nobody's going to go to a hauler that has no rep and give them $1 trillion worth of shit, But people do that shit, man. There's so many fun, like you can look into it. So many fun, like tales of like implausible betrayal and backstabbing, like two dudes that like built a guild or a corporation together from the ground up that goes on to be one of the biggest corporations, and then one of them like literally backstabs the other person at the most critical moment and joins their enemies and steals all the stuff out of the corp wallet, steals all the ships, and just leaves that guy destitute. I mean, it happens over and over in EVE. And like I said, the game system like implicitly supports that kind of play. It's not, there's not like game masters running around wagging their fingers at people for being mean to each other. It's like, no, you're supposed to be mean to each other. It's EVE. I mean, you don't have to be mean to each other. There are a lot of people that are, like I said, very trustworthy. They make a lot of money because they've been, playing for 10 years and they've never lost a load or whatever. And you can see their work history as a hauler. You know what I mean?
At least the last time I saw you play, you were pretty quiet. You were just like, I'm just doing my mining.
It's a very zen game for me.
Yeah.
Well, I usually play games that engage me, or I gotta be like pressing the buttons at the right time, dodging at the right time. I like that kind of engagement. But Eve is a game where I can just get my fucking big old mining barge, just cruise in, and this fucking wonderful ambient space soundtrack is playing, and I zoom into this asteroid belt, and there's these huge skyscraper-sized asteroids just placidly floating in the void. And I set myself up in just the perfect spot so that my 4 mining lasers can each be pointed at one different asteroid. So I get the maximum mining time cycle out of it, and I just fucking kick back. And then once that's set up, I go get my hauler, and he flies in, and I find a spot that's right up close, so I don't even really have to do much with him to move the ore from the... And then I'm just peaceful. Until somebody shows up and blows up my mining barge and extorts me, which actually happened.
Yeah.
Relatively recently, too. It happened to me, I think, 2 years ago. I was doing just that. I was like, in high sec, nobody can touch me, mining low grade ore, but just by the fuck ton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not expensive, but I'm mining a ton of it, so it's, I can make a lot of money doing it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh. At first I thought it was just an NPC pirate, and then my mining barge blew up.
And did you have to rebuild it?
Oh, no. The mining barge didn't blow up. My transporter blew up.
Yeah.
My mining barge soaked a couple of hits, and I got it out, but my hauler went... And then they got blown up, but the ship that they lost was dirt cheap, and the ship that I lost was expensive as fuck. And then they sent me a DM, and they were like, hey... it was basically like a cover. It was funny. They were kind of like role players. They were like, hey, we're the high sec mining security force, and we noticed that you're mining without a license and blah 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 blah. It was basically like, hey, we're the fucking gorillas over here, and if you don't pay us a little bit of your money every month, then And so, I didn't have to go along with it. I have a hauler, so I could have just moved to a system where these guys aren't operating and done the same shit. But I was like, what they were asking for me wasn't a lot. It was like $1 million ISK a month, which I was making $1 million and 5 ISK a load in profit. So I was just like, whatever. I was like, I'll go along. This is kind of fun. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. That sounds fair. That sounds like a fair deal. And they're like, okay. And they sent me this thing that I had to put in my character bio.
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm a licensed blah, 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 licensed by this player on this date, blah, blah. And they were like, all right, as long as you're current, we won't blow you up. And I was like, all right, fair deal, man. Thanks. I love Eve so much. I wanted them to get a little money out of it, so... It was fun, and I kept mining in the system for a month, and then when it came time to pay again, I mined a couple of times, with maximum, with my maximum caution mode on. I would set my thing up and then point it right at the system, so I didn't have to align before I jumped. But they never came back. They'd moved on to some other. It was just a racket, you know what I mean? The banditos, Have you ever traded real money for in-game money? Traded real money for just bought gold or whatever no. Or bought currency? No. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's for impatient people.
Yeah. I'm not an impatient person. And there's really Eve has a great system where when you buy in-game money, it's tradable in-game. So you can actually use it as a trading thing. You can buy this thing called Plex, which if you redeem it, it gives you 1 month of playing Eve for free with all the benefits. And you can use those to trade for in-game things if you want. So people that do want to trade real money for in-game money aren't like infusing a bunch of crap into the
Mhm.
thing. It's like something that only the player benefits from,
Mhm.
not the character.
Mhm.
So it's a really good way of getting around the like pay to win shit.
Mhm.
Like, that's just boring. If you can just pay to win.
Yeah, I totally agree. And in Eve, like even if you pay, because there are ways that you could probably like you buy a bunch of Plex, you trade it for a really fast ship,
Mhm.
but it's Eve.
Mhm.
So if you don't have the skill to fly that ship,
Mhm.
it's basically a floating duck.
Yeah.
So you can look all cool if you want with a brand new character and buy like $100 worth of Plex and buy a big ship.
Mhm.
But chances are, as a brand new character, you ain't even going to be able to sit in it yet.
Yeah.
So it kind of like
And then it's just a big liability until you can do it.
right. So it kind of evens itself out. Like it's a pretty good economy. Obviously, it's been going forever, and it's still a really popular game. So I never got pay to win myself, but you're not impatient. Yeah, when it comes to games like that, like the slow trickle of progression is what I'm looking for. Where's your praying mantis women's sunglasses today, Paul? I don't know. If they were out here, I'd probably pop them on. This bullseye shirt was super expensive, you guys. I bet you could pawn it for a fortune. Maybe. Yeah, I play Elite Dangerous, yeah. I've done a few streams of that as well. Kind of similar game to Eve, but pretty dissimilar. You do some of the same stuff, but just not on the same scale as Eve. I think Eve has a sense of scale that's way bigger than not necessarily like universal scale, but player influence scale. The scale is way bigger in Eve than it currently is in. But that's okay. It's just a different kind of. It's more of a space sim. Elite is rather than like a space MMO. I tend to be an asteroid miner in those games. Oh yeah, dude, mining asteroids is so fucking cool, and space trucking is cool. You know what I mean? Just kind of like you've got like this huge payday in your hold, and you've just got to get yourself from one side of the galaxy to the other to cash in, baby. And you even got a return load that you can buy when you're there and cash in on your way back. That feels so good, and it's so placid and peaceful if you're careful, you know. So yeah. How does the trucking gameplay work? Exactly like you'd expect. Like honestly, it's great. You've got a set of skills that are like accountancy basically that allow you to see markets not just in your local area but all the way across the galaxy if you've got enough points. So that's a set of skills that a lot of trucking characters either pick up or have an alt that does. And then you find a trade route. You can look at the prices of commodities, right? So, for example, in the supply chain, right? I'm a miner, so I'm spitting tritanium, which is the base level mineral in Eve. The cheapest mineral, but it's also used in everything. So it's always in demand. It always has a commodity price. It always needs people out there mining it, and it always sells. So I've got tritanium, right? And I go and I sell it at a station for a profit. So I've already made my chunk. I've gone on back to the belt to mine some more. Now you show up. And you show up because you saw that there was a really overabundance of tritanium in my area because me and a bunch of other people have been mining it out and selling it at the same station. And you saw that tritanium was way cheaper here than it is in this part of the galaxy where it's really adjacent to a lot of pipelines that go to 00, where there's a big war going on, where tritanium. If there's a war going on, and I told you you need tritanium to build everything in the game, from ammo to ships to space stations to everything. So if there's a big war going on, ships are being blown up and they need tritanium. So you found a place where you can buy tritanium at 0.95 credits per unit, and you can sell it for 3. And you've got a giant hauler with a hold that can have 1,000,000 cubic meters or more of space in it. And all it takes you is a careful flight path from one to the other. And if you're a smart guy, you look over there and see if there's anything that's, in need there that's cheap where you're at. If you're starting from the place where there's it's adjacent to a big conflict, then there's stuff there that's probably not even in demand at all, but that will be in demand where you're picking it up. So you double dip. You take a load there, sell it, make a big fat profit, then use that profit to purchase a big hold full of cheap goods and go home and sell it and make a big fat profit. You're just smoking some meats. Well, it's a genuine economy. They've done a fantastic job at creating an economy where everything that you get as a player, everything that you do as a player has value on the market. May not have as much value regionally because it's supply and demand. It's like a true working economy in a game where everything, like if you're just a brand newbie and you go out in a tiny little frigate with little mini mining lasers on it, and you pew 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 in an asteroid and you fill your tiny little hold with tritanium, that has value to people who are playing in the end game. Not necessarily your chunk of tritanium, but the massive chunk of tritanium that your tritanium will be a part of is indispensable to people who are playing at the ultra end game, ultra competitive PvP level of the game. And that's astounding. You know what I mean? It's just a great system. Now, there are more rare ores that get rarer the farther out you go. And if you've been listening, that means the more dangerous it gets, that you can sell for a fucking way, like a hold full of that is worth a way more than a hold full of tritanium, but you're assuming a lot of risk. Yeah, that's the flight stick I have, actually. I've got a Thrustmaster T16000 or whatever it is that I use for Elite. I haven't actually ever played Elite any other way. I don't think I would want to. It feels so cool to play Elite on a flight stick. Eve wouldn't really work that way. The control scheme is very different. It's not like a first-person game. Used to go to sketchy places with an escort of pirate friends to get the good ore. Yeah, you can do that. And like I said, like in the end game, I never did end game mining. Like I did end game stuff, but I wasn't a miner at that point. I didn't have my mining alt at that point. But the miners in that guild were allowed access to the most expensive ores in the game and some of the coolest ships, in my opinions, in the game. Because like you guys remember what I was talking about, there was a Titan, one of those big ships that's more built for warfare. Well, there are capital ships that are not built for warfare. There's this thing called the Rorqual that is basically just like a giant mobile mining platform. So it's a giant ship that's like a almost Titan-sized ship that you fly in and set up in the middle of an asteroid belt. And just imagine this. This is so cool. It's not just you pew-pewing the lasers. It's still pretty chill. But there's like 10 other people that are engaged in this too. And you're getting to mine the most expensive ore in the game. And everybody in the mining team gets a cut. There's a dude that's a mining foreman, and he's sitting in the Rorqual. And there are dudes that are doing transport. They bring the ore to the Rorqual. The Rorqual fucking compresses it and puts it in its giant hold. And you guys just sit there for fucking 8 hours if you want to. And just eat that whole belt. process all of that stuff into liquid gold for you and your crew, and then you take it back and you sell it. Awesome, right? It's just great. Like, I don't know, for some people that probably sounds hella boring, but for me, I'm just like, oh man, what a cool, futuristic, neat thing to be able to do in a game. I've always wanted to mine on a big team of miners, and to be quite honest with you, if I really wanted to do that, I've got a character that could easily, like, walk into a mining guild and be doing that today if I wanted to, probably. Like, my mining character is already flying in-game barges. He's not like max efficiency or anything, but he's totally ready to sit in a belt and eat ore. Híjole. Are there smugglers in the game? From what I've described, like, how couldn't there be? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying, like, yeah, of course. Yeah, there are people who will do these insane stuff. There's a dude who got popped flying a shuttle. This is insane. Now, this would usually go completely beyond notice because a shuttle is a tiny little craft that you buy when the only thing you want to do is get your character from one place to the next. You don't want to carry cargo, you don't care about having guns. You got a tiny little cargo hold, right? And so this guy had a plan. He had to move some of the most expensive things in the game, which are called BPOs. Blueprint originals, basically. From a blueprint original, a guild or a corporation with enough money to buy it can infinitely manufacture a certain type of ship. So they're they're super expensive in the game. Like, it's something that all the in-game guilds want, a full collection of BPOs. They want as many of these strategic ships as they can get. They don't want to be relying on having to buy blueprints over and over again that only have like 3 runs, because like that's how it usually works. You have to buy a blueprint from somebody who's made it. It's like an STC for Warhammer people. So a blueprint original means you can make infinite blueprints. So not only can you infinitely make a ship, but you can actually sell blueprints, because you can make blueprint copies, BPCs, out of it and sell those to people so that they can do 3 runs of this type of ship or something, because maybe that's all they need. But you, as a huge Empire guild, you can just refresh your force as needed, because you got miners, you got the minerals, you got the traders. Not traitors, traders. You know what I mean? Real cool. There was another game that was pretty placid that not a lot of people remember. What the fuck was that game called? It's not Stargate. Is it Wormhole? It's not Wormhole. Dude, I swear to God, I played this game where you could be a trader. And it was way back in the day. Trader with a D. Warp Gate, Jump Gate. That's the name. And that was a really cool game where you could play in this relatively big universe that had a lot of factions in it. And you could play it a lot of different ways. You could be a miner. You could be, yeah, oh yeah. Well, Freelancer was like that too. Yeah. Jumpgate and Freelancer. I played them both. And you could basically, like, you could be a pirate. You could be you know, a guy that just finds mining routes or like trading routes. Could be a miner. Could be any combination of those things. It was kind of neat. It was way more rudimentary than Eve or Elite Dangerous is when it comes to like a space sim, but still a really cool game. I don't know how people can disagree with simulation theory when we already have such in-depth worlds in this reality. And it's only going to get more complex, man. Like, they only get more complex and more dynamic and more lifelike and more, you know, like, it's crazy. And, you know, people can't see that trajectory on the possibility of one, maybe millions of other planets in the universe. That line is going to be blurred when most people are using VR. I mean, dude, it's already starting to happen. I've seen like grandpas and grandmas playing VR and shit. Like, we've reached this point where people are already starting to explore these simulated realities in various ways. And they're getting ever more photorealistic as time goes on, as the ability to create this graphical fidelity continues to go up, up, up. I haven't watched all of Black Mirror. I don't remember one with a space game. I've only seen the first season of Black Mirror, and only I don't even think I finished that. It's not because I didn't like the show either. It was just because it was a little dreary for me at a time where I didn't want to add more of that kind of content constantly on top of my head. I don't know if you've noticed, but I can tend to be a little bit of a dreary person myself. I can get in some dreary moods. So I you know, I really liked it, but I felt it was oppressively depressing. So I really do think I tapped out after maybe like one episode from the end of the first season, and I've just never gone back because I don't want that. I don't need it. Watch it. Trust me, it's good. I know it's good. I watched a lot of them. They were really good, but they depressed the fuck out of me. They're a very nihilistic look at the future, and I think that they're prescient in a way that makes me very fucking depressed. I think the point of the show is almost to point out like this is where we're heading, and I don't disagree with a lot of the conclusions that the episodes come to. I think that one of the things I found brilliant about the show was its ability to imagine these adjacent realities that don't quite exist yet, but that are all very plausible and that are all very much extensions of the momentum that we're holding now. And so I understand it's a good show. I just found it very fucking depressing, personally. I think it's good that you think about your mental health at least. Well, if you don't, then you end up fucking uncomfortable all the time, dude. If you're anyway, I don't want to go on a whole fucking ass mental health aside, but if you're a person that suffers with mental health and you're constantly like willingly exposing yourself to stuff that you know triggers a negative response in you, you're just like helping along, you know, your disease at a certain point. Like, if you don't know when to say like, hey, this just is not making me feel good inside and I'm gonna stop doing it. Like, if you don't know when to do that, it can be very destructive. And take it, I'm not preaching that to you as a person that's never done it. Take that from somebody that has done those types of things for a long fucking time, dude. I used to, as a reaction to being depressed, immerse myself in depressing stuff. I've talked to you guys about this, man. Like, I went
there was a point in time where I would read 3 newspapers every day, cover to cover, pretty much. The New York Times, the San Francisco Chronicle, and the local newspaper at the time, which was the Fresno Bee. I would read all 3 of those newspapers every day. I had a subscription to 2 of them, and I worked at Starbucks, and so I would read the 3rd one there. People would come in, buy a paper, throw it in that little basket so other people can use it, and on my break I'd go snag that and read it, put it back in there. And so at any given time I was reading 3 fucking periodicals every day, and I was deeply fucking horribly depressed. And the constant the constant flood of news, both local, international, and domestic, most of it pretty contextually bad, as you can imagine, fed that engine of depression. And I sought it out. Just like, yeah, man, this is the way the world is, and I gotta fucking, man, it's my duty to expose myself to this stuff, dude. I would have made a way better political commentator back then, but I would have fucking went crazy. I would have went crazy, burned out, hurt myself, something. I'm telling you guys, though, I'm not even joking. At that point in my life, it would have been like from like 20, 22 to like 28, 29, maybe even 30. Bro, I knew everything going on in the world. Because I wasn't just, reading 3 periodicals every fucking day and absorbing all of that shit and following all of that shit. I would go home and watch the news and shit. I'd see, like, the different fucking perspectives on it. I thought it was really important for me to be day to day, minute to minute, hour to hour, as much as I could be, up to date on the goings on in every corner of this planet. And I would have been a bang up political commentator. If it was like a general political commentator. I don't think I was at a point where I would have made a very compelling, like, firebrand political commentator. But as a general, like, hey, here's the news type of guy, dude, I could have done that shit. I just was so entrenched in it, man, but it was so fucking depressing. And I'll tell you, it wasn't until relatively recently, I'd say in the last 10 years of my life, that I realized what a profound effect, like, immersing myself in that it did, and how many different angles I was doing it from. So I quit the news shit. And that was tough, man. It was honestly hard to stop doing it. I had developed such a habitual, it was a big part of my life, as you can imagine. It takes a while to read 3 newspapers. It takes a while to sit and, watch, the news shows at night before you fucking go to bed. And to have that be that big of a part of every day, as much as you can make it, was pretty crazy. And when I kind of stopped doing that, it was tough at first, but then I immediately noticed that I had a better outlook on life. Like, the less I paid attention to what was going on, not in the world, I wasn't completely uninformed, but, the less I paid attention to the constant influx of news, the better I felt. And so that was a big identifier for me. And then I had to realize that movies did this to me too. You know, I'm a fan of movies that are often depressing in theme, and it's not like I'll never watch one like that. I started one that I'd seen last night, just, you know, as I was kind of like winding down for bed. The Master, which is a pretty depressing movie. So it's not every movie that really puts me in a bad place, but there's some movies that really get you, and TV shows too. And you know, when one does it to me, it's like, all right, well, as cool as this may be, it's not really worth me going through the turmoil of dealing with that. And so I'd rather feel okay than watch this. So, you know, that's really what it comes down to. And I abide by that pretty religiously. You know, if there's a movie that I put on and, you know, it gets going and I start feeling, you know, it's just really hitting me in a certain way. And, you know, I just kind of turned it off and find something else to do, find something else to watch. I think that's probably a wise thing to do, you know, especially when it comes to stuff like that. Or, in my opinion, reading the news, which is almost on the same level of activity, in my opinion. You may disagree. Same for music. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's some music is a whole different thing for me, though. Like, I don't mean to, like, wax all philosophical about it and stuff, but music, there's like a spiritual connection that goes there. There are pieces of music that I can listen to that will make me weep at their beauty. And that's like a human emotion that's very nice and very amazing to have, but it's not something that you want to do all the time. You know what I mean? You don't want to just, because like I don't know if it would run out if I just listened to it every day or something. But if you throw on that original recording of Basin Street Blues with Louis Armstrong and the trio, that it'll make me just like, I just thinking about it makes me want to fucking cry. It's such a beautiful, it's like, to me, that it's so evocative without being directly evocative. It's just a piece of music that I genuinely believe speaks to directly to humanity, and it's perfect. There's not a mistimed note. There's not an unwelcome sound. To my opinion, which whatever, they're like assholes. Everybody has one, of course, as my dad used to say. But my opinion is this is the most perfect piece of music ever made. I've never heard a song that is that absolutely perfect. And Louis Armstrong is such a centerpiece in that. His scatting, which is, if you don't know, it's like that kind of lilting in and out of saying things and then using your voice as a musical instrument. There's a part in it where he becomes a clarinet. I'm sorry, dude. I'm not even gonna fucking get into it. Can I just suffice it to say that there are people on this planet that come around that are just, there's something different about them, man. And he's one of those people, man. He can move me in so many different ways with his art. His trumpet, his cornet, his affable way of speaking, and his implacable ability to fucking just become an instrument. Unbelievable, man. A fucking amazing person. Amazing artistry, amazing, just like high tier, fucking put it up against any kind of painting or sculpture that's ever been made, in my opinion. In my opinion, dude, put Basin Street Blues up against the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's David. You know, I don't know that it beats them, but man, it deserves to be right there. Yeah, you drop a link whenever you want, man. You got a wrench? You know I trust you with that shit. But anyway, that music is on a different level with me. Like, there are pieces of music that can just inspire a raw emotion in me. And when I cry at Basin Street Blues, it's not because I find it to be a sad song. It's because I feel very connected as a person in that moment to everybody else, because it's a human creation. There's not a computer in it. I mean, obviously there are machines that recorded it, but you get what I'm saying, man. It's just a raw performance, a one taker, and it's perfect. Perfect. Fuck. I honestly wish I wasn't so connected to that piece of music so that I could talk about it without turning into a blubbering mess. Because, I would love to try and explain some of the things that music does to me, that particular piece of music. It fills a part of my heart that I usually keep completely blocked off. Like, and I think you kind of have to, almost, in order to exist, especially in our society now. That, like, kind of stoniness that you have against other people. When I say other people, I mean people that out of the sphere of influence that we all care about more than anything else, right? Our family, my wife, my animals, my mom, my dad, my sisters and my nieces and nephews. Those are the people that are in my bubble. And I care very deeply about all of them, but I usually just don't hold a whole lot of my heart open for people I don't know. And that song forces all of that stoniness out. And it fills me with a sense of inescapable commonality. And it feels like something that wasn't made by us. I know it was. But yeah. So music on a whole different tier, because as that piece of music can move me to tears at just the beautiful and horrible commonality of man, there are other pieces of music that can make me angry and make me very, very sad. In other ways, fill me with a sense of absolute peace and meaningfulness. And music is on a whole different level, man. Very. I think music is a basic and elemental thing, you know, amongst human beings. I think it maybe even predates language, to be honest with you. Um, not written music, but maybe codified use of percussive instruments and reed whistles and shit like that probably predate the establishment of what we call a language. And there are certain musicians that play from a place that is, in my opinion, it's a spiritual thing. they kind of tap into a common experience, a common experiential place. And it's not every musician that even has the talent to do it, to be honest with you. That doesn't make their music bad. It just means that not every piece of music is important in a broader sense. Music can be fun, and there's no problem with that. Has any rap song ever done that to you? Maybe not to that level. There is a rap song that I don't listen to very often because it hits different. It's called Uncommon Valor by Jedi Mind Tricks. It's just like a Vietnam War story. And, told from a couple of different perspectives. Very interesting and very moving piece of music. Is a movie or book giving you this feeling? No. There's like the feeling I was describing when talking about Basin Street Blues is something that is exclusive to that. It is a piece of art that I appreciate in a way that is not reflected in my appreciation of any other piece of art. It is just an emotional experience talking about it. Listening to it, I'm guaranteed to weep at its beauty. And, for my personal reasons. And, there's no other piece of media, no other piece of art that does that to me. Bridge Over Troubled Waters, yeah. I mean, I like the song, but it never... It's funny. It's just, a lot of that's just a personal thing. It's all rooted in a certain amount of personal bias. If I hadn't been exposed to jazz at a young age, I'd even appreciate Basin Street Blues. I'd have nothing to compare it to assess its perfection, not just against other songs, but against other jazz songs. And so really I'd have no basis for the idea of perfection going into it. But because I was very luckily exposed to jazz as a young person, in addition to funk, Motown, disco, 60s and 70s protest rock and hair metal. My parents, for whatever flaws they may have had, were music junkies, both of them. My childhood is soundtracked almost. You know what I mean? It's a great thing to have grown up in a household where there was always music in the air, and it was always something different and always something beautiful. One day I might wake up and my mom would be in the kitchen cleaning up, or making some eggs and bacon or whatever it was, and Nina Simone would be playing. And some days it would be Journey, and some days it would be Foreigner, and some days, it would be Ella Fitzgerald, and some days it would be, it was just a very diverse thing. Men at Work, whatever the hot pop song was at the time. There were also very current people. They appreciated a lot of the music of their childhood and before, and then continued to appreciate music because they were still young people. They were still in their 20s, and they had me. So I was very lucky, I thought, to have been exposed to a wide variety of music. I didn't think back then, but I've thought now. What are my thoughts on the Ukraine war? Do you think it'll escalate further to Europe? Yeah, I mean, I think that if both sides are locked into a position, when I say both sides, I mean, NATO and when I say NATO, I mean mostly the United States. You know, I mean, I know NATO is a coalition of countries, but the United States runs that bitch. And I think everybody knows it. We certainly don't let people forget it. Um, so it's basically, the United States and Russia with Ukraine as a chess piece. And, how far will Putin continue to push into the Ukraine? How committed is he to a continued occupation? How brutal will that occupation be? What will be the red line in the sand that's set by America and its NATO allies? That, hey, if you don't stop this by this date, if you don't start it's just, I've seen this type of shit before, where it escalates from a total diplomatic breakdown failure on both sides. But I'm an American, so I don't know what the Russians brought to the table in this negotiation game, but here's what I know: our chief diplomat fucking screwed the pooch, and his diplomatic team screwed the pooch, because there was just literally no movement on this either way, no concessions, no positive fucking no seeming desire to even listen, let alone capitulate to a single fucking thing to make this fucking thing not turn into a war. And everybody was beating the fucking drum. You guys saw how it was, dude. This was last week. You cannot claim to have not seen what happened. Everybody was just like, war, 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 and then it happened, and everybody just, it was just so fucking gross for me to see. Everybody just kind of like simultaneously had this like wargasm. Oh yeah, and that's the fucking least fucking last goddamn motherfucking thing that you want. And the soldiers that are dying in this on both sides are just goddamn. I fucking like, my heart goes out to all of them, because no Russian soldier is, rank and file that's out shelling Kiev or fucking doing street to street or whatever they're doing right now. No Russian soldier is some kind of fucking like guy that was an architect of this. Soldiers are often sent to places to do things they don't agree with. They're not trained to agree. See the Vietnam War. See the Korean War. See, both Gulf Wars. See our ongoing global war on terror. See, talk to the people that have served in those wars if you can find one, and ask them how they felt about what they had to do every day. And I don't know if your experience will be different from mine. Of course, my experience is anecdotal, but I have quite a few family members that have served in the military during wartime. And I've had conversations with these people about what happened to them during that wartime. And all of them had a really sad, haunted moral conflict with what they had to do there, because they didn't see the change that they thought that their sacrifice and the sacrifice of those people that they helped to kill or killed directly was going to bring about. Oh, absolutely. The anti-war left, at its core, was almost exclusively veterans of foreign wars. Not exclusively, but I mean they performed or formed a huge cadre of the anti-war left in the 1960s and 70s and 80s. My mother was a medic during Iraqi freedom. Horrible stories I've heard. I can only imagine, dude. You know, I don't want to give too much away about my family and stuff, but I've told you guys before, my uncle was a Marine in Vietnam, you know, and did the kind of shit you see in movies, like, you know, wading through waist high fucking water for a day, trudging through rice paddies and stuff, hitting the deck every time there was a, you know, mine spotted up the line, getting ambushed and ambushing other patrols. I mean, he did it all, and he hasn't talked to me about every little thing he did, but he's told me some fucking haunting shit. Some just absolutely haunting stuff. And I had a friend when I was living in Arizona that, you know, he served in the first Gulf War, and he told me some fucking haunting shit. You know, just some terrible fucking shit that he participated in, that we, when I say we, I mean our military, you know, the fucking guns and boots and people that we fund did some horrible shit over there, man. You know? And these men and women that are sent over to do these things come back haunted and broken a lot of the times. And, you know, but as to answer your question, it seems like that the United States has decided that, you know, it's going to allow Putin to take the Ukraine, or take Ukraine. Sorry, I guess I need to drop the people. Sorry, it's just a habit. And I guess it's dependent on people of former Ukraine are treated as to whether or not you'll see some kind of NATO operation to liberate Ukraine or whatever. I mean, that's a worst fucking case scenario, man. But it's plausible at this point. And, you know, people have been very supportive of it all the way up through its progression towards that. And I think if you're a person that was waving the flag of one country or the other during this time, and pretending that this had a good guy in it and a bad guy in it and shit, I think you guys are going to have a lot of splaining to do if things continue to head on the trajectory that they are. Because it looks, you know, I'm not a super political analyst or anything, but from what I can tell, it looks like the plan is to let Vladimir Putin basically take the Ukraine, not the Ukraine, take Ukraine. And then, like I said, I think it's just going to come down to how he treats the people of Ukraine. If he decides he's going to do some death camps and shit, or some, you know, Trail of Tears type of fucking relocation type of shit, or he's, you know, brutalizing people, it's going to get out there, and then NATO's going to have to respond, and it's going to be a conflict to liberate Ukraine from the occupying force, and that's direct war with Russia. And there are fucking nukes everywhere, and that's the worst possible motherfucking outcome for everybody involved. And I really feel like that if you've cheered the process along at any level at this point, that you are going to have some splaining to do if it gets to that fucking point. I really hope it doesn't. I'm not looking forward to it getting to that point, but know that that's what's at stake here. Like, that's where that could head.
Yeah, I just like the whole, like, treating it like sports stats, like, how many kills this side got, like, how many kills this side got. It's like,
people celebrating the killing of Russian soldiers, who I was just trying to explain to people, you know, are like people, you know what I mean, that have like families, that have mothers at home that are weeping probably right now still, who maybe they didn't even support doing what they were doing, but they were ordered to, because I tried to explain to you earlier that soldiers are not trained here in the United States or in Russia to have moral conflicts with what their orders are. They are trained to follow the chain of command implicitly, or their buddies die. And so when they're ordered to do something, they do it. I'm not saying that there's, no moral implication of that. I don't want to hear anything about the Nuremberg trials or whatever the fuck. Being asked to invade a city is different than being asked to set up an ongoing, years-long death camp, in my opinion. They're both atrocious and horrible actions, but they're not morally equivalent. So, I can understand a young person who's in the military, who's been through the indoctrination of basic training, having his fucking sergeant tell him, hey, go over there and fire that fucking rocket launcher at that building, and doing it. Because American troops do it all the fucking time. And they're not evil people. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, there are some evil people that find their way into the military. Some people that get off on carnage and the power trip of it and shit. And I'm sure that's true in every nation. That's part of the nuance here. But I think your rank and file soldier would rather be at home with their family.
And just these sanctions are gonna affect the common Russian people for years. Like, they were specifically designed to be long-lasting sanctions.
Yeah.
That cause people to suffer for years.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's extreme, and I haven't heard any mainstream people saying this, but I have seen people calling for, like, what basically amounts to concentration camps for Russian citizens.
Yeah, Rep Swalwell was like, let's kick all the Russian people that are on education visas out.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that. It's maybe not concentration camps, but it's on the edge of that type of shit.
Like
a
internment.
Forced mass exodus of anybody with ties to Russia or who's currently a Russian citizen living here in the United States out of here. You know what I mean? It just feels ugly. So Big Red 40K says, celebration of death in this war by everyone has really opened my eyes just how pathetic this has become, especially with online discourse. I totally fucking agree with you more, man. I don't mean to invoke Vosh again, but he's so central to a lot of the online discourse now. I saw a clip of him gleefully, and I kind of touched on it a little earlier, but you can go watch it. It's in one of his recent videos. I don't remember the fucking name of it. I think it was, Putin had a bad day in Russia or something like that. It's like Putin in the thumbnail. Anyway, you can find it if you really care to fucking fact check me, because I'm not going to tell stories out of school. But he was kind of like almost like very, in my opinion, ghoulishly and gleefully describing how Russian soldiers were going to be being sniped at by Ukrainian, normal people in their apartment blocks and stuff, and how they were going to have to stay inside of their APCs and piss in cups. And all of that is very true. But motherfucker, can you imagine being ordered into a situation like that? Mm-hmm. Being one of the people that has to look at another human being that lives just across a border from you. So that's not like some person from all the way across, or some alien from another planet.
Yeah.
It's a human being that has a mom and speaks the same fucking language as you.
Yeah.
And either being the person that's huddled down in an APC having to pee into a cup because you're afraid to pop your head out because somebody will blow it off, or being the person blowing people's heads off.
Yeah.
Like everybody over here that's never fucking seen a bit of especially the people that have never seen a bit of actual fucking combat nor never will. I'm not claiming I will, but I'm fucking anti-war, so I don't have to. But there are so many people out there who are just gleefully reacting to the deaths of people, both on one side or the other, like making heroes out of the, whatever. They died in a very heroic way. I'm not going to undercut that, but those are the guys on Snake Island in Ukraine that told the warship to go fuck itself or something. That's a great example of bravery. But the fact that people are over here just slavering over that, dude, 13 dudes fucking died. And, who knows how many Russians have died, and all of it for nothing, man. And I'm telling you, if this escalates further to the point where NATO is counter-invading Ukraine to push Russia out, that is tantamount to the United States and Russia being in a hot war together, which instantly brings nuclear weapons into play. That doesn't mean they'll be used. It just means they're in play in a way that they usually aren't now.
It's like right now it's the situation that it was in Afghanistan, where we're arming people
Yep.
in the country that's being invaded by Russia.
But we have sent troops to surround
Yeah.
the Ukraine and shit. So there's 2,000 troops right at the beginning of this were deployed. So there are American men and women on the ground that very well may be the front line of a NATO advance into Ukraine. So they're out there about to put their bodies, their lives, their relationship with their children and their family and their girlfriends and their wives and their husbands and their boyfriends and their life partners and their children on the line for this. And there are people out here going like, oh my fucking God, comrade, yes, go fuck yourself, warship. And those men died. Oh, the gleam in his eyes was just so fucking sick. And it ain't just him, though. This is how people fucking get when war comes, man. I've seen it so many times. It's just the ugliest side of humanity comes out, man. It really does. And all you really have to do is think about just being a human being that had no say in what's going on. Being in that fucking position and just knowing what a fucking ultimate hellhole that is for everybody involved, and not celebrating what's going on over there like it's some kind of fucking
soccer
match where if your team wins it's a point for leftists or whatever, and go fuck yourself, man. Ugh.
Yeah, just the vitriol too, like you saying shit like anyone that, you know, defends Russia can burn in hell.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking crazy, dude. I've been called like a fascist. I've been told to fucking like fuck off and go to Russia and shit. I'm just like, whoa, man. Whoa. Do you think that Putin feels emboldened because he knows the U.S. doesn't want to get involved because of the threat of nuclear war? I don't think he feels emboldened by that. I think he feels mostly emboldened by the fact that he's done this before and we talked a big game and put sanctions on him, but it didn't. In the end, we didn't do shit. So he just took Crimea. So this is not like a new and unprecedented thing. People act like, oh, fucking Russia just invaded a country. It's like, yeah, they did it before, and we told them, we talked a big game and shit. We put a bunch of sanctions on them, but ultimately they just took a bunch of land. And they're doing it again. And they know they've done it in the past, and we're going to talk a big game and put a bunch of sanctions, but we ain't going to do shit. And so that's where it stands. Vosh is a clown. Man, can we not just... You not start it with just a big fucking like insult or whatever, because that doesn't inform anything about the discussion. I don't think the dude's a clown. I think he's pretty smart. I just think he's misled in a lot of ways, and he probably feels the same way about me, I'd hope. He uses the language of the left, but often has the most vile international positions and promotes them in a leftist way. Well, like, look, dude, I know he would disagree with this, but the left is a very broad thing, and there is a militant wing of the left. There's also a left that is way more like fascist adjacent, way more one way or the other. So one way would be tankies. Another way would be leftists that always find their way on the side of the U.S. imperialistic move or find ways to justify it. And I would say that Vosh is one of those. I would say that Vosh is part of a pretty broad spectrum of leftists that tend to like go along with the, well, America right meme, even though history doesn't really play that out. And you can look at really where America has been and what it's done to those people and what American intervention has really cost in terms of lives and property damage and economic damage, if you care about shit like that. You can look at that and see those numbers, but a lot of people are really sucked into the trap of, well, yeah, America right this time. This time, it's going to be good that America is ready to march into a country this time.
I mean, I think, too, it's like, I think more people are rabid about this one because it's a white country being invaded. So, like, a lot of more white people are like, oh my God, this is the real tragedy that weren't the same when like Afghanistan was invaded or something.
Right. I honestly, and this is probably going to be an unpopular take, but knowing a little bit about the geopolitical history of the region, I think the absolute best outcome for the people of both Russia and Ukraine would be if Russia just kind of takes over Ukraine and everything kind of settles down and it goes back to pretty much like life as usual over there in
Like
Ukraine.
Hong Kong and China or
Right,
whatever.
like whatever. Like however close you can get to that, I think that's the best fucking outcome here because it's the only outcome that doesn't have human beings marching into a big buzzsaw and just a bunch of cackling freaks fucking profiting off of it on both sides. That's the only way it doesn't turn into a really dangerous, grinding, horrible Eastern European war that could go on for fucking years and years and years, man.
Like, it sucks.
Ukrainian
but
people would not be happy with that. I totally fucking agree. But they'd probably be a lot happier being alive than dead in a fucking apocalyptic end times type of war. So I don't know, man. And like I said, I didn't say that the best possible outcome would be that Russia takes Ukraine and brutally oppresses every part of Ukraine. I said the best possible outcome would be that Russia takes Ukraine and then allows it to be kind of a semi-autonomous client state or whatever, so people can get over it and just kind of go back to their jobs, and that the sanctions eventually lift, and so the people of Russia aren't suffering as a result of that, because you know Vlad isn't going to suffer. Once again, this is something I'm on record before this whole Ukraine thing even broke, and I'll say it again. Anytime you hear the word sanctions, it's just the polite and gentlemanly way of saying, let's starve the people of a country. So when you hear they're putting massive sanctions on Putin, if you think that Vladimir Putin is going to have to sell his fucking Bentley collection and move out of his palace because of these sanctions, you're wrong. He's just going to take what we have not given him access to out of his people's ass. He's going to keep living opulent. He's going to keep eating caviar every goddamn night and cruising around in his little fucking private jet or his fleet of it. And the people that suffer are going to be average people, a lot of which, as you've seen, oppose what's going on in the Ukraine to the point where they're willing to risk protesting in a country where that could be deadly. Not that it couldn't be deadly here in America, but it could be extra deadly in Russia. They'll just swoop you up and take you to the gulag and have you executed or whatever. And people are actually standing up for Ukrainians there. So I'm telling you, man, the suffering is going to be wide and massive across Eastern Europe, across Ukraine, or whatever is left of Ukraine after this is done, across Russia. For people, if you care about people that are in the same position as you, that had no fucking say in where they were born and are just trying to make a way in wherever they were born. That's me. That's my wife. That's pretty much everybody I've ever known that was a first generation American or a second generation, or like a second generation American, or at least. And that's most people. And so if you care about most people, and you care about the nuance of the fact that not everybody in Russia, in fact, a lot of people in Russia implicitly don't support what Vladimir Putin is doing, just like here. There's a huge swath of people that don't support what every president does when it comes to war and violence and continued prosecution of the drug war and this, that, and the other thing. So if you understand that this is a nuanced position, just like it is here in the United States, and that it's not good guy, bad guy, it's really just the suffering of the people that's at stake here. And anybody that beats the war drums during the time where the suffering of the people in any country is going up, 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 is a person that I think is just feeding an ugly machine, man.
It's like really the whole goal of sanctions is to starve the people enough that they oust their government.
Or that it gets so bad that the government has to break.
Yeah.
And they go like, okay, we'll stop because like the fucking world is watching our people starve and we can't hide it anymore and we can't do it without, okay, we'll do it. That's the hope.
But
let's
like,
make your people...
North Korea didn't do it. Like,
well, that's the thing. It's like they don't always work.
Yeah.
North Korea was willing to just let its people starve out.
Yeah.
They knew that they could just replace them. And so so who suffered at the end of that? Look how fucking huge Kim Jong-un is. Look how big his dad was and his granddad. The Sung family is known for its rotundity. Go look at a fucking North Korean during the harshest sanctions at the end of the 90s and in the mid 2000s. Ribs out to here, bellies all fucking inside. And yeah, a lot of that had to do with the fact that North Korea was really inefficient at distributing what stockpiles that it did have. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that China wasn't willing to help its client state and cross the red line with the United States and do something that would be hostile to the United States. So they didn't give them food. There's food right across the border. So a lot of food did come in. I'm not saying China did nothing, but there was no like big push to save the people in rural fucking North Korea, and they just starved, man.
And look who's still in power.
And look who's still in power. Yep, the Kim dynasty. Fat as fuck too. Huge. In a country where fucking people are eating gristle at a premium. So let's not lose sight of the suffering here, and let's not lose sight of ourselves and our lust for righteousness to celebrate something that is already horrible and could become insanely horrible if diplomacy is not employed. And I genuinely believe that diplomacy can solve most anything, because there have been so many talented diplomats in history that have taken situations that are not dissimilar to this. I'm not saying the material conditions are exactly the same, but there are diplomats in history that have done their job to de-escalate wars and to save their people during wartime and shit, and to eke out a way and to make fucking alliances happen and to make this happen and to make concessions that are hard but fair. Dude, it's just been done. So I'm a believer in that. And if we don't return to that, if NATO and Russia equally don't return to the table with Ukraine involved and really start negotiations, and if we don't start pushing for that as a people, if we just keep going like, yes, Ukraine killed a Russian tank, woo, this could get real bad real quick, guys. So in my opinion, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your channel, maybe stop the blood dripping Putin eyes with the nukes in the background and the glassy-eyed glee at people dying and being killed, and start like really screaming at your government to hit the fucking negotiation table immediately. Start screaming at the Russian government to fucking stop and talk. No. War. Ukraine's gonna beat them back. Beat them. And I've seen the country get like this in the past, dude. Saw it get like this during Afghanistan, and I will admittedly, I will admit, I was a very young man when I was 21 years old. I got wrapped up in that shit. When my government told me that a dude that operated out of Afghanistan, was supported by the Afghani government, had taken a bunch of airliners filled with American citizens and used their bodies and the plane around them as missiles to kill a bunch more Americans in the middle of our not best, but our biggest, most grand city, right in fucking sight of our Statue of Liberty. Dude, I was fucking livid. I was like, fuck those people. Bomb that whole country to dirt. But here's the thing. When it spread to Iraq, that's when I fucking jumped ship.
What did they have to do with it?
I was like, whoa, huh? Iraq? Because I knew that George W. Bush had a history with Iraq. Mm-hmm. His father had failed in Iraq to establish any kind of regime change. And Saddam had said some fucked up things about George W. Bush. He'd say, I will have him beheaded and shit. Or George H.W. Bush. And George W. Bush on the campaign trail had said, he insulted my dad. So there was like all this ego wrapped up in it. I knew that.
Mhm.
And I'd never heard any reports of Osama bin Laden being anywhere near Iraq or any of that political sphere. It was just all of a sudden Iraq was like, well, that's one of the havens.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, this has all been bullshit, man. Because after fucking like a year in Afghanistan, we hadn't even turned up shit. Everything they kept telling us kept turning out wrong. They told us about Tora Bora or Bora Bora or something, which was this huge fortress. Like Osama had taken this mountain in remote Afghanistan near the Pakistani border, and he had built this maze of a base inside of it. And the entrance was this tiny, innocuous little cave. But inside was this war factory where his fucking soldiers were trained and his missiles were stored and shit. You can find pictures of it. There's like a cutaway of the mountain, and somebody's drawn in all these facilities and fucking, it's fucking ridiculous. Dude, they sent a bunch of people at a huge expense, by the way. A bunch of Americans died to take this. And it ended up just being a fucking like goat herder cave that had an ammo cache in it. Went about like 20 feet deep into the rock, and then there, at the back of it there were some old fucking Russian missiles and some old American fucking contraband missiles and shit.
And a fuck ton of other intel was from torturing people that were willing to say whatever just to get the torture to stop.
Yeah.
They kept being tortured when they didn't tell them what they wanted to hear.
So I mean, it's just a long and fucking bloody example. Paul, just out of curiosity, do you think that America should have involved itself in World War II? Honestly, yes, I do. The reason for that is that I'm able to, with the aid of history, look at the scope of World War II and what was going on and how many people were being not just killed in direct warfare, which is horrible enough on its own, but how many civilians were being wrapped up in it, and in how many places, and in what cruel and horrible, inhumane ways. But I will tell you that I think that the United States waited way too fucking long. If we were going to intervene in that war, our fucking leadership should have, contrary to the opinion of the fucking people, which is what they wrote on, mostly American people did not want to send people over to fight a fucking European. They didn't want to send American boys to fight a European boys' war. And so we waited and we waited and we allowed Hitler to go and go and go and expand and like become ever more powerful before we jumped in. Had we jumped in early, supported our British allies, supported Poland, and really provided an immediate pushback, then there would have been no impetus for Russia to get heavily involved. Russia wouldn't have made its incursion into East fucking Berlin. It wouldn't have made its incursion into East Europe in general. There would have been no impetus for it. We could have stopped him in Poland, in my opinion, with the war force that we probably had. Before he gained territory, before he gained so much more access and so much more coverage, and it turned our involvement into a horrible slog. But it's a forgivable error. None of the people here that were against the war knew that our hesitancy to get involved in this time, or most of them didn't anyway, meant, civilians literally being brutalized in the worst way and shit. News wasn't what it used to be, or what it is now. It wasn't a
Yeah, it was like going to the
microcosm.
theater.
Right. So what people knew was just like, it's just fucking a European problem, and they were against it. But that's the fucking point. I don't necessarily agree with TJ. TJ, when he was saying like America should immediately commit and stop Russia or whatever, I think that that's just like hitting the fast forward button of what I was talking about personally. But I can see where he's coming from.
I think he was more just making a point. I don't think he was like specifically advocating for that. I think it was more like we either go all or nothing.
I think his point was that if we would do it, maybe Putin would have a reason to think twice about it. But ultimately, if we do it, and I think it's a good chance we do end up doing it anyway, depending on how this all fucking works out, it's just going to escalate this to a place that's like, I don't even have to paint the fucking picture, dude. It could get real ugly, real bad in Europe. especially Eastern Europe, for a real long time. And a lot of soldiers could die in this. A lot of people from a lot of countries. And it's really not going to matter in the end what country they were from. They're all going to be dead. There's a great monologue that Joker gives while he's looking at a pile of dead Vietnamese civilians being covered with lime in a mass grave and then pushed in by a dump truck, and he's trying to write a story about it as a reporter. And he says, you know, the dead, I'm paraphrasing here, but he's like, the dead don't quarrel and the dead don't worry. He's like, the dead know only one thing: it is better to be alive. And the tragedy is they don't even know that. They know nothing. They've been taken from what could have been a life of experience and love and loss and common humanity, and turned into just a fucking cynically used pawn in a war that really benefits them not at all. And they were ground to dust by it. And that dude, you celebrate that shit. Oh. I'm just not wired to do that, you know? And so I oppose the escalation of this at every fucking turn. I think that, you know, in my opinion, it's not my job to tell you how to react to shit, but in my opinion, you ought to be screaming diplomacy, diplomacy, diplomacy now. Come to the fucking table, ceasefire, summit, get our best fucking diplomats, get the best Ukrainian diplomats, get the best Russian diplomats into a room and lock that fucking room like they do on a jury, and don't let these motherfuckers come out until they've worked it out. And that's the way that we save millions of people from dying over the next 10 years in Europe, in my opinion. And so why people are howling for blood and rooting soccer team style for Ukraine or Russia or whatever, shame on both of you. Because what needs to happen is cooler heads need to prevail. A ceasefire and a summit need to immediately happen. An equilateral fucking summit. 3 ways: Ukraine, NATO, Russia, and work it out. They don't stop till they work it out, man. It could be done. And why there's not more people fucking screaming bloody murder for that, and so invested in fucking monetizing and screaming bloody murder about people that died on fucking Snake Island or how many Russian tanks got blown up. You know, people drive those. Those were Russian men and women who were ordered to drive a tank across a fucking border that has nothing to do with them as human beings, and ordered to do whatever, and they were blown up in it. I mean, whatever. So you might take fucking political sides in one way or the other, but that was still a human being in a tank that probably cooked in it after it exploded. The engine exploded, and that person probably burned for a while before they died. That's how people in tanks die. And so people are all just like posting memes of Russian tanks blown up, and like there's weird shit like where white people are starting to say inshallah now. Mm-hmm. Or non-Muslim people are starting to say inshallah now. What is that about? What is that? Home? Number one, you're putrefying Islam for non-violent Muslims, taking a phrase that is, you know, supposed to be a greeting of peace and a departure saying of peace, and turning it into something that you say when people are blown up and cooked inside of a tank? What is that about, dude? And that shit is based now? Why? Why though? Oh, man.
Humanity's fucking ugly.
Yeah, it is.
beasts that are hairless that fucking.
No. You're just gonna shove your head in my face
Yeah.
to get your chin scratches.
I know you have the /S here, so fancy way of saying "so be it" when translated literally washing your hands of human death, because the guy that ordered them into it is an asshole. Real nice look. I mean, yeah, that's the sad thing about it. You listen to what I just laid out to you, and that's what it'll be condensed to for people that want to keep rooting for war. It's like, what about an armistice? What about a ceasefire and a treaty where concessions on both sides are made and people come to a fucking agreement and normal average working people can go back to their lives and not be ground up by war? How about that? And so much of our focus is on like what's blowing up where, how many people died in this, how many people did Russia kill, how many people did Ukraine kill back, you know? And nobody's looking forward to the eventuality that if this continues to escalate, there's going to be millions of people killed, like millions. Europe is going to be like a fire zone. So let's not wish for that, man. They could stop it here. They could stop it now. All that has to happen is nationalistic hubris needs to be set aside a little bit for the common good of humanity. And I know it can happen. I've seen it happen in history before. I've read about it happening in times that fucking, you know, before my time. I know people can come together multilaterally and send their best people in and make a fucking effort at it. And I know it can happen. And that should happen right now. And that's where I stand. And that's where I've stood from the very beginning. The very beginning, when Putin started to invade, I looked at it as a complete and utter diplomatic failure. There should have been an emergency armistice. There should have been an immediate, you know, move to have Putin and Biden get in the same room. But you know what the problem with that is that Joe Biden can't be in the same room with Putin because he's fucking mentally, he's got a mushmelon in his brain.
I will say
But the best fucking thing, can you get, but you and I, if we had a good fucking president that had a good head on his shoulders, that wasn't like losing his mind because he's 70 something, that could go and have an armistice with Putin and literally sit down with him across the table and say, let's not do this, man. That it couldn't have been stopped before they even invaded.
No, I agree. It's just funny.
But it
that,
didn't
like,
happen.
When Biden was like beating the war drums, he stuttered the least, which is interesting. Like his speech about the sanctions.
Well, because that's when the blood is flowing
Yeah.
to his groin area and it's feeding all those good vital organs and keeping, you know, he loves a good war, man. That's another thing about Biden that nobody should be surprised about.
Yeah.
He's never met a war he didn't like. What if Biden thinks Putin is a kid and sniffs him? That's the point. What if he craps himself in front of Putin and just like immediately like loses? They couldn't even risk it. Because, and see, this is the connective tissue that a lot of people don't see, because a lot of people during the last election made absolutely fucking certain that Joe Biden was eventually the one. Like when they scuttled Bernie, nobody made a move. The left as a whole and voters as a whole didn't stop it. They went ahead and elected Joe Biden. And now we've got a guy that's so old and incapable that we can't even hope to put him in the room with Vladimir Putin and make a deal. Like, that's off the table. So hopefully we've got some younger, talented, more with it, more knowledgeable, and more accessible fucking people on all sides that can be sent to the fucking table and stop this. And that's what I say we should do now. When I say we, I mean just humanity. And that includes Russians, Ukrainians, and Americans. And Eastern European NATO countries. Or European NATO countries in general. Just NATO countries in general. We, the world over, ought to demand that there be a ceasefire. There ought to be a fucking immediate anti-war push in this country. We ought to punish them, not celebrate them. You see what I'm saying? You're letting Joe Biden get a win for escalating this because he's too old and doddering to work it out. Because his position as head diplomat failed. And by the way, a lot of people that are pushing for this war also pushed for him to get elected. He's their head diplomat of choice. People forget this, man. The president of the United States is the chief diplomat of the United States. It is the president's job to make sure a war doesn't happen. And we've got a president that's so old and dried up and addled that if we put him in the same room with Vlad Putin, he'd just get eaten alive, like Trump did. Probably not in the same way. Trump just got his ego stroked once or twice and turned into a little lapdog immediately. Fucking Joe Biden would bumble, stumble, and probably crap himself before the thing was over. And Vlad Putin would come out looking way better, and he would be able to bully his way through the argument. And the people of Ukraine would probably suffer way more as a result. Because they're not a strong diplomat sitting there with a clear head and a clear path towards ending this. And a clear and sincere desire, no matter what the fucking opponent's intentions are, your opponent here, no matter what the other person sitting across the table's intentions are, you have a clear and honest desire to stop fucking World War III from happening. You thought he was in his late 50s, early 60s because Putin has had an absolutely astonishing amount of plastic surgery. Go take a look at Vladimir Putin from like 1985. He looks like a dude that's about 50, and that's when he was about 50. Go look at Putin in the 90s, and then start looking at Putin in the early 2000s. He had an astonishing amount of plastic surgery. We actually did a mini-sode on Deep Fat Fried, plastic politicians.
Or it was a full episode that you did.
Or was it? Oh yeah.
Yeah,
it was
you just did a really big preview of Biden's
yeah.
evolution.
But yeah, we did a big. I forgot. Thanks for reminding me. We did a big long patrons only episode about it called "Plastic Politicians." That was all about how weird the trend of politicians that are getting older is to just carve away at themselves and have more and more absurdly invasive multiple procedures that make their faces into something completely different, and they're doing it for our benefit so that we are more happy to look at them, I guess.
Yeah, although it's not working great. Hillary Clinton should not have apples of her cheeks that big.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not working great for any of them. If you really look at Vladimir Putin, especially if you compare it to what his real face looks like, you'll see what I'm talking about. It looks cartoonish. It looks cartoonish on Joe Biden. Joe Biden has had an absurd amount of plastic surgery. Absurd. He's had like hair replacement surgery, facelifts, and neck lifts, and tucks, and tweaks, and nose shaves. Yeah. I mean, he's had it all, man. He's had his whole face restructured so that he looks younger as a dude that's fucking 70, and he doesn't. Yeah. He just looks uncanny now.
Like his balding just like moved. Like
yeah.
He didn't used to have like the thing in the back was just like. Oh.
Yeah, the spot of his balding is just relocated all over his head as he's gotten older. It's just absurd, man. Biden was bald 40 years ago, dude.
Yeah.
Biden started like actively balding and having like what amounts to a very light comb over back in like the late 70s, early 80s. So yeah.
His very first presidential campaign.
Yeah. So Biden like 40 years ago was balding, like significantly balding. So yeah, he's been bald for fucking ever. He should be fucking like a cue ball, or like Bernie, who's bald up top, you know. You want to take a look at what a fucking old person looks like that's in their 70s? Look at Bernie Sanders. He's relatively pretty much the same age as Joe Biden. Mm-hmm. That's what an old person looks like. I'm not even trying to talk against Bernie. I think Bernie had a lot of good ideas, but I'm just saying that's what an old person's supposed to look like. That's what their faces look like when they don't spend a cartoonish amount of money making their face look like a big bloated balloon of rejumbled parts and shit.
Like Hillary Clinton and Nancy Pelosi are two different sides of the coin. Like Pelosi's got that West Coast like pull face back as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then Hillary Clinton's like Phil.
Yeah. It's very strange.
Like you said, like when you get older, like your cheeks kind of deflate a little bit, and just a baby fat in your face just supposed to.
Is it too much to ask for a president that can speak two sentences without his brain rebooting? Yeah. And you know what the sad thing is? You're unlikely to get one the next cycle, too. There's a really fucking better than average chance that Joe Biden just squeaks his way through the next cycle. Maybe Trump will die, or maybe Trump will just get like indicted and fucking imprisoned and he won't be able to run.
Because, like, it's about damn time for them to think about announcing someone for 2024, and they haven't yet.
Well, I was talking about it
Yeah.
in one of my early morning streams, and I think we'll hear about it after the midterms because, like, causing a bunch of chaos and like stealing all the press right before the midterms is a good way to ensure what's going to happen will really happen. You know, I mean, it's going to happen anyway. I think there's going to be, you know, at least probably a flip in the House, or if not, at least a
Senate,
in the Senate for sure. You know, they don't want to be like have the biggest announcement be like who's going to be president next fucking couple of years out in 2 years who will be president. So they're probably going to wait until after the midterms are settled, and then if there is any intention to replace Joe Biden on the ticket, they're going to have to announce it. Because people are going to start campaigning. You're going to start seeing primary challengers within the Democratic Party, probably not a whole lot of serious ones, but you'll see it. And you're going to start seeing the Republican Party start putting together a stable of people, and they're going to start hitting the trail. And you're going to need to have your president do it if indeed they intend to run for re-election. And so I think after the midterms is really their last chance, because that is really when you're going to see campaigns really shift gears from the midterm campaigns to the presidential. Because now presidential campaigns start about 2 years from when they actually take place. So you're going to see the first declared candidates, any primary challengers from like the obscure left wing. They'll pop up. You know, there'll be rumors coming out of Washington of, you know, a VP swap, or, you know, that might be a thing. Like Biden might stay in it, but pick a different VP that's way more verbose that can handle a lot of the shit. That it doesn't immediately turn people off, you know what I mean? Because like Kamala try as hard as she wants, people just can't like her. Remember, Kamala Harris, I always say her name wrong. I say Kamala, and I think it's Kamala, but I may be wrong. Maybe it is Kamala. Anyway, whatever. I've heard it both ways. Kamala Harris, she got primary nowhere.
Yeah, she dropped out before they're even Iowa.
Yeah, she had no chance before it even got to the primary stage, dude. So nobody wanted her. She was literally bottom of the barrel candidate, and somehow she got elevated to the vice presidency. So relying on her to win an election is pretty much like not going to happen. So there's a lot of people saying like, oh, Joe's going to drop out and just Kamala's going to be the candidate. And I'm like,
That would be horrible.
I was like, yeah, maybe.
I think Hillary's bowing up for another one.
I think so too. I think that there's a good chance that Joe wraps his big old fucking gross, creepy, liver spotted arms around Hillary and says, I'm with her, you know, I got to step down for, and he won't admit it's due to cognitive reasons either. He'll say it's like, to be with my family, you know, I'm not a spring chicken here and I want to make the way, you know, and what better way to do it than with a historic first female president. So I'm with her. And I think they're going to have to just like, and this maybe is a little bit of wishful thinking, but I don't think she has any kind of clout or power at the DNC. I think Kamala Harris is going to go on the proverbial political chopping block. I think she's going to hit the proverbial political guillotine, and they're just going to like, she's just going to get dumped out of the equation.
I feel like if Hillary does run, she's going to pick like Ratface as her VP.
Ratface?
The gay dude, his name is escaping me right
Booty
now.
Judge?
Yeah, Booty Judge.
Ratface? He does kind of have a rat face, you're right. How did you forget Booty Judge, though? It's such a memorable name. No, I get it. I do it all the time. But yeah, no, yeah.
I see a Clinton Booty Judge.
I mean, maybe you're not wrong.
She picked a horrible VP last time that like no one knew.
Yeah, and see that's the thing is I think Hillary is going to be super selective this time about who she picks, and I think she's going to let people squabble for a while over it and like dance for her at her court to see who's willing to fucking subjugate themselves enough. But who's like spry enough to handle the job of
Yeah.
making sure they back every fucking thing she
Mhm.
does and don't make people hate them like Kamala
And
does?
I think Booty Judge is corpo enough to fucking.
Yeah, but people kind of hate him though, and not just because he's gay.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of like a scoop of vanilla ice cream, just like Tim
Yeah.
Kaine. Honestly, like he's got.
Tim Kaine was old though, so at least he has young going for him.
He looks like more young and spry, so maybe
I mean,
that'll be
he did good in the primaries up until South Carolina.
But a lot of boring ass fucking like non-politicians did good in the primaries, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and did good leading up to it too.
Yeah.
Like, there were a lot of times where it was just, and like, fuck, dude, there were so many just non-entities, and he was just, he didn't really stand out to me. He was not like, for all of his very interesting background. He's a soldier. He's a mayor of a small town who's like really jumping the fence here and trying to say like, hey, it's time for small. Like, I don't really think he played that well enough.
Yeah.
Because he just doesn't come off enough like a small town guy. He was too focused on trying to sound like one of them.
Yeah.
He sounded like Mitt Romney.
He would have done better with a little bit of accent.
Yeah.
If he had it. But
yeah, and a little bit more salty language and a little bit more blue collar way of speaking. Not to butch up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
He could be gay with it if he wanted, but like just a little bit more fire to him. But I don't think he's capable of that. I don't think he's got any of that in him. I think he's just kind of an ambition. Like he's got.
You combine Lindsey Graham and Booty Judge, and I think that would be an interesting person.
It would be a nightmare person, but it would be an interesting nightmare.
Like, I think Lindsey Graham's voice with Booty Judge would be a lot more standout.
Yeah, because you're right. Lindsey can fucking cut the mustard, dude, when he needs to. No joke. Like, I don't agree with him, but when a screed needs to happen, when you need to put a little salsa on the burrito because it's a little bland, he can do it, dude, in his own little style. Say what you want about Lindsey Graham. No, I can see your point there.
Yeah.
But I would not want to make a Lindsey Graham Booty Judge homunculus. I wouldn't risk the world for that, you know. Just calling him Booty. What is his name? Booty Judge? Like you said, but you spelled it Booty Judge. Well, you can't. So is spelling it that way homophobic? I don't think so. You just got a ridiculous name.
His name is Booty Judge. Like, I can't even think of a different way to pronounce it.
Yeah. It would be like if his name was like Wang or Cox or something.
It's like,
no matter what your orientation is, you're going to fucking...
The other thing is like Booty Judge, but...
Booty Judge?
But that's still the same thing. It still has booty.
Dude, I hear Booty Judge everywhere, dude.
Yeah.
So yeah. Pete Buttigieg, dude. I could see it. I could also see I don't think Hillary would be. Do you think Hillary? Let me ask you this: do you think Hillary would be willing to share the spotlight with a woman?
Probably not.
With a woman VP?
Probably not.
No.
Like I said, she picked fucking Tim Kaine.
Well, that's the thing is, I think she could pick like politicians have actually thought about doing this in the past. And I could see Hillary trying it.
Oh, the two parties.
Like picking Liz Cheney or some shit.
Yeah.
And like unifying the bridge or whatever for a one-term promise. We're going to work together to stop the gridlock in Washington, you know. But I think just like Hillary would have problems having another woman next to her.
Because then it makes her look old and all that shit.
And that lets like Elizabeth Warren straight out too.
Yeah.
Right? Because there was a time where it looked like they were trying to like buddy up, but it just never amounted to anything, remember?
Yeah.
So I don't think
she likes sharing the spotlight.
Well, the spotlight for her is female president.
Yeah.
And already she's probably galled by the fact that she wasn't the first vice presidential female president, especially considering that Kamala Harris is so disappointing and so a non-factor, you know what I mean, as a woman. In a quite frankly very powerful position, at least when it comes to, you know, the media and shit. And she's just horrible at it. People hate her. And so, but I think there's just a natural competition in her to want. I'm going to be the one. I genuinely feel like Hillary. I don't know when she started to believe it. Maybe she always did, which is kind of interesting. Like maybe she was a little girl and she was like, "I'm going to be the."
Well, she does. Remember that one post like "Happy birthday to this future president." It's a little. She likes posting young pictures of herself.
She likes to remind people that.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but she likes to remind people that she was once young.
Yeah.
which is
Like
probably
her Valentine's picture was her and Bill from like fucking 40 years ago or some shit.
right. And it was like she wants people to look at a picture of her when she's a toddler and see their little toddler.
Yeah.
And think, oh my God, my little girl could be the president.
Yeah.
And somebody has to do it, and maybe it's this little girl that does it. That's what
Mm-hmm.
that she's got that in her, in her blood, and she really is believed for who knows how long that she's destined to be there.
Remember that cringe tweet, the Butthurt Emails hat that she started peddling? She
Yeah.
put that on a picture of herself from like at least 20 years ago.
Trumped up, trickle down, and Pokemon Go to the polls, and basket of deplorables, and all of the shit that just got. She's just that's the thing about Hillary is I really honestly do not believe that it's sexism alone that's kept her out of office.
Yeah.
It is genuinely that she's just not she's not likable. She thinks she's way more likable than she is. She's not relatable. She thinks she's way more relatable than she is. Her antics are on display for everybody. Her I carry hot sauce in my purse, honey child shit on the Breakfast Club. Dude, black people read that like a fucking open book. There's no way that Hillary bougie ass Clinton carries a hot sauce in her purse unless she's coming on the Breakfast Club. Because she wants to appeal to black people in a way that she can't. See, in my opinion, if she was a really good politician, she would stop trying to be a black person. That's not how you appeal to black people.
I mean, look at how popular Biden was with black people. He didn't pretend to be black.
I mean, he kind of does.
Yeah, you think he
When
does?
go listen to his victory speech in North Carolina when he won and like the primary shifted. He uses a lot more like countrified, and maybe it's not as explicitly black, but it's definitely that those are the people that won him that primary. And he's speaking to a room full of black people, and he'll turn on the fucking old soft shoe bit a little bit too. Howdy, y'all.
That's true. Yeah.
But nowhere near as bad as Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Nowhere near. He's better at just kind of like always having a little bit of that blue collar affectation, or at least he used to be. Hillary's never been good at that because she's not it. She's always been kind of like a privileged white girl, and like if that's the truth of your life, then run with it and show your compassion in other ways, and don't try and sell yourself as like, I know what the black struggle is because I grew up in Arkansas. It's like, well, no. No, you don't. I mean, yeah.
But look at this. Like, we're talking about like future world leaders, and it's like a circus show.
Yeah, it's a garbage show. There's nobody that you would want to put in the same room with Vladimir Putin right now, or any of his diplomats to you know, I mean, none of those people. Buttigieg. None of the people currently in positions that should be talking directly to Putin could do it.
I can't imagine school marm Elizabeth Warren doing well with it.
Like, imagine a world where, like, okay, it's imperfect and we've got this old ass president, but his ego is such that he's willing to admit in a time of crisis like this that the vice president would be a better voice to send. And so they come up with a pretext, and we've got a really competent, fresh, knowledgeable young diplomat to send over there. Imagine Kamala Harris was that.
But she's not.
But she's not. Dude, can you imagine her? I don't even think she could imagine herself in the room with Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, her don't come speech.
Do not come. I'm gonna come. I love that little meme.
Yeah.
Trump is a horrible person, but he's pretty fucking funny. I mean, you can't deny that, dude. He's got that comedic timing down. He's just kind of an inherently comedic, cartoonish character, and he embraces it. And I think that's what people liked about him. And that's what people on the left have failed to learn about Trump. Is that, dude, do I think Trump is genuine? No. But do I think Trump is a master of seeming like just a genuine guy that understands what you're going on because he's willing to just... Yes. and they're going for this like, I'm very smart and educated and look
Yeah,
at
we're
me.
civilized.
Yeah, it's just like, man, you need to get a blue collar motherfucker
Yeah.
real quick who's not afraid to cuss once or twice on the campaign trail and not afraid to rabble rouse a little bit during the debate, not afraid to tough talk. Like Tim Kaine was kind of that guy. And you know,
But
I
he
know
was
him.
just such a nobody.
Well, that's the thing is, yeah, he kind of came out of nowhere, but he built a lot of momentum real quick because of that. Because when he talked, he sounded like he was talking from a place that was generally recognizable as a kid that was blue collar and grew up blue collar. And he just got scuttled, man. He got scuttled. And who do we get? Oh my God, dude. John Kerry. The least relatable, lurch-looking fucking weirdo that ever fucking... Dude, he was just unelectable. Unelectably bland.
I thought she stuck with Tim Kaine to the end.
No. I'm talking about a whole different...
Oh, okay.
This is an earlier electoral cycle.
Okay.
This is pre-Obama.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about fucking... Oh, shit. Did I say Tim Kaine?
Yes. I thought you were still talking about 2016.
I didn't say Tim Kaine, did I? I said, what's his name? Did I say? I fucking did. Howard Dean.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
I was like, all right.
That's why you seemed
Tim
confused.
Kaine built momentum. It was blue
No.
collar.
Tim Kaine didn't do shit. I was just, yeah, dude, I'm stoned. Sorry. My bad. It's to blame. I mixed them up in my head. Everybody's now not, yeah. Oh, yeah, John Kerry, yeah. We're talking about, like, the cycle before Obama. Tim Kaine made Fallout, yeah. It's true. Did the Dean scream actually sink him? Yes. Not really, but yes. I mean, that was it stopped his momentum. The media kind of turned on him at that point, and the DNC kind of turned on him, and the people kind of turned on him. And it was just memed about too much, and nobody took him seriously. And we ended up dropping the strap to a total, just like unelectable piece of fucking dog dookie, dude. John Kerry, Tim Kaine could have Bush's presidency.
You mean Howard Dean?
Howard Dean. I did do it because I just did it again. Howard Dean could have interrupted George W. Bush's presidency.
Damn Tim Kaine.
Stupid Tim Kaine.
Go away.
Memorable name, but unmemorable person. Why is Kaine wearing a suit? Yeah. I don't know. Tim Dean, Howard Kaine, 2024. Yeah. No, dude. I'm just mixing up fucking old ass politicians and have been discarded in the dustbin of history. I met Howard Dean. I would never talk about Tim Kaine ever. He's just not even worthy of discussion. So if I ever say his name, just assume I'm talking about somebody else and try and figure out who I'm talking about from there. What if Al Gore beat Bush in 2000? He actually did, but it didn't end up mattering. It ended up going that way in the end, but he actually literally did. Turns out, after all was said and done, it is conclusive that Al Gore won the presidency in the year 2000. But because the process was so in flux, going to the Supreme Court for them to fucking settle it once and for all. And I think Gore went along with it too. He was like, for the health of the country, I've decided that you're, just to step down and stop pursuing the presidency. That was that. George W. Bush was president. He had a good old Florida man and his hanging chads, man.
Pregnant chads.
Yeah, pregnant chads, dimpled chads.
Yeah.
And, hanging chads.
They had to have gotten rid of the Chads after that election, right?
One would think. But I don't know. Maybe in Florida, I'm pretty sure they did. Good old Florida man and his shaman Chads. Yeah, yeah. Dude, I have been doing this for a fucking long ass time. I'm gonna go ahead and end it. Thanks for stopping by and chilling. You know, take your bloodlust if you have any and turn it into like advocacy for these three international entities to come together and start screaming bloody murder about an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine, sorry, not the Ukraine. Immediate ceasefire in Ukraine and immediate multilateral negotiations and just an impetus for none of those countries to come out of the room until they've come to a reasonable fucking conclusion. And so that people don't have to die in the millions, dude. Make that your advocacy now. Don't be whipped up into a frenzy about war by the media and by commentators who are all fucking invested in waving a flag and shit. Don't wave any flags, man. If you're gonna wave a flag, wave the flag of peace. And you know what peace entails? Talking, diplomacy. That's how you advocate for peace. There's a lot of people that think there's some kind of like moral conundrum with being anti-war because it's just like, well, both sides bad, nobody can defend themselves. No, 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 no. You know nothing about the anti-war movement. The anti-war movement most often calls for diplomacy in situations like this. They don't immediately pick a side and start rooting for it. They call for all sides involved, and in this case, we're talking NATO, we're talking Russia, and we're talking Ukraine, to come together in multilateral peace negotiations, have an immediate ceasefire, and work it out. If human beings can fucking build the things that we've built and design the things that we can design and explore space to the extent we have and pull off the technological leaps that we have and form the complex governmental structures that we've formed and create these complex interwoven societies that, despite how you feel about their politics, actually function in some way. And you can't look at the totality of that and tell me that these fucking three countries can't get together and talk about this. So advocate for that. Take your time to advocate for that. Stop fucking being pro-war. Stop advocating for war. Stop celebrating death. Stop celebrating dismemberment. And get on the fucking peace train, man. Listen to a little bit of fucking Sufjan Stevens. Listen to a little bit of fucking Cat Stevens. Get right on the peace train, dude. But anyway, yeah. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye.